Skateboarding had 12 million participants. Snowboarding had 8 million. Wakeboarding had 3.2 million. And surfing, ocean surfing, rail surfing, had 1.5 million.
On today's episode of the Grab Matters podcast, we welcome on a very special guest, Kevco. Kevco might be best known for being the former editor of Wakeboarding Magazine during its heyday in the late 90s and early 2000s. He also worked at the WSIA for a while and now is the head of USA Waterski and Wakeboard. We get into a bunch of stories with Kevco, including one where they took Kevco's DNA at Red Bull Wake Lab and then turned it into a full-on portrait. We also talk who he thinks has been the most influential wakeboarder ever, as well as some numbers when it came to magazine, sales and what advertising looked like back in the day, as well as what it took to make, a magazine and what all the work that went into it looked like. We also talk where he thinks the future of the sport's going to go, his new position at USA Waterski and Wakeboard. We also get into just a bunch of wild stories from when Kevco was at Wakeboarding Mag in Orlando during some wild years that wakeboarding had. I just want to say thank you to all the Patreon subscribers. Your guys' support really helps keep this podcast going. It means a lot, so thank you to everyone who's on the Patreon. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, joining the Patreon is a great way to do that, as well as supporting the brands that support this podcast. That's also a great way to help support the Grab Matters podcast. Without further ado, hope you guys enjoy this episode of the Grab Matters podcast. All right, we're back. Another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. Today we welcome on a very special guest, Kevin Michael, 2 first names, a.k.a. Kevco. What's the deal with Kevco?
Oh, man, it's just a nickname I had from way back, growing up in Wisco. My friend Steve Bosco, that's the co. We started a fake ski school. I think I gave you my old business card.
I did see that, yeah.
I'll
put a picture of that in.
It's a fictitious business. And we did do some water ski lessons for cash. But I later went on to, water skiing at SeaWorld and all that stuff, and that was my nickname there. But I didn't really lean in on the Kevco thing until I became a Pro Tour wakeboard judge.
Okay.
And I had some parents after me, dude. So
we'll get into judging in a little bit. Cause,
then I was like, yo, I need an alias and a pen name because I don't want any parents Googling me and, emailing my bosses to fire me because their son didn't make it to the finals.
Well, Kevco's that's a good one. It's a great alias to have, and it's definitely stuck. So, as you know, we start off with a couple quick questions. I mean, you have a water ski background, but you've been in wakeboarding. You've been in water sports for, almost your entire life. So what's your favorite grab?
Yeah, man. Personally, probably just a nice stale poke.
Okay.
I think taking that to backside 180 was probably one of my favorites.
To do, you mean yourself?
Yeah,
okay.
I probably only got a good one a couple times. But, and then anything mute. I think anything Randall did mute. Like, he would do mute, back to the handle, backside 180. And that technical stuff was pretty cool. So, as simple as mute is, I think that's probably
I think that might be the first mute. We're over 50 episodes in. I think that's the first mute.
Well, and then switch heel side, mute. It's kind of like indie, basically, but the other way. So, that comes easy. Easy to poke, like a switch mute 180.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I like that answer. I want a quick question on Wakeboarding Mag before we dive way into it. When you were editor of Wakeboarding Magazine, what was the most amount of copies of a mag that you printed in 1 year?
I think we did
if you remember.
Probably 10 in a year.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So almost every month.
Yep. Yeah, a little time off in the winter. So.
Do you remember how many copies?
There was 75,000 distribution.
Per issue?
Per issue.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Our print run was 75,000.
Okay. And is that the peak, you would say?
Probably.
Or average for a while?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. That's some units, baby.
Yeah, dude. And they weren't just sitting around. Like,
they're getting flipped.
They weren't sitting in boxes. They were on newsstands and, they were subscribers. So I think 45 to 50,000 of that was called paid circulation.
Okay.
So those were bought.
So I guess run through the difference quickly of so you got subscribers, you have paid circulation. What's the breakdown?
Paid circulation is what you want. That was like $20 a year, and then there's newsstand distribution, and then there's copies that would go to industry and just, advertisers and stuff like that. But we didn't send out boxes of 50 just to every pro rider and hope they got out there and they'd end up in the garbage can.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Yeah.
Okay. Wake pants, yes or no?
I mean, I've done it. You know, I had some camos, I think, back in the day.
Okay.
You know, I think it's a great question because there's debate. But, you know, Shane Bonifay could get away with whatever he wanted, dude. Like, he was that cool. And, you know, Trevor Maurer, Gunther Oka, like, those guys are true gangsters.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, not going to argue with that. So I'm down with them.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a great debate.
I like
eternal. The eternal.
It's eternal. Yeah.
Existential.
Exactly. That's what we're going for. I got one that I've been listening to some podcasts you've been on and some interviews you've done, and you touched on the blue mind theory. And I think it'd be cool just to, I hadn't heard about this before I heard you say it like a couple days ago. So what is the blue mind theory?
Yeah. So to understand blue mind, it helps to understand what red mind is. And people can relate to that as, you know, if you're buried in computer work or just overwhelmed, stressed, got your head down, stuck in traffic, you know, that's red mind. And blue mind is the opposite of red mind. So it's the neuroscience behind being around, in, on, underwater, and scientific benefits of how it's not only good for you, but, you know, makes you better at what you do. And anyone that's kind of been in our game and around this and been attracted to this environment will just get it, you know. So it's Jay Wallace is the author of that book, and he's spoken at our events and some other nautique events and stuff like that. And just super cool guy, you know, surfs a little bit and just he's the guru, you know, like super smooth keynote speaker guy that everyone loves. So yeah, hats off to Jay Wallace.
So, I mean, blue mind theory, would you say that it's like water equals happiness is like kind of a way to break that down in sense of like peace and happiness and
sure.
being on around the water?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, origins of life may have come from, you know, that mixture of elements and water. And there's human populations are drawn to the coastal waters and obviously lakefront. So there's a reason why we're attracted to that. And I believe it's a big part of, you know, how to market our sport. And because it's so natural.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's something that, I mean, I hadn't heard about it. And I think that probably a lot of people also hadn't heard about it. So it's an interesting theory, but it's backed by science, which is cool.
Yep.
So let's talk Boardstock 96.
Ooh.
Yeah. I want to talk Boardstock 96. So what was Boardstock 96? I'm looking at a picture here, and I'll take a picture of this and insert it on the screen here. But yeah, what was Boardstock 96?
Yeah, so unfortunately I wasn't an attendee of this, but I was already a wakeboard fanatic at the time. And to understand, like, you really got to put yourself in the context of the 90s. So we're talking no cell phones, barely internet, like maybe a little email here and there, but nothing like we know today. And wakeboarding was exploding because of the compression molded boards and high wrap boots that were coming out. So it was right at the right time. And, you know, there was a whole culture surrounding like grunge and like Rage Against the Machine and all that type of, you know, music and stuff that was happening at the time. And Boardstock 96 was started by Wakeboarding Magazine and some other sponsors. And it was just, hey, let's get some pro riders out, get a little tie up, we'll get some houseboats and just go have a good time. What it turned into was complete freaking madness. You know, in true stock fashion, like Woodstock fashion, I guess everyone and their friends just rolled up and the boat launch was just mobbed with people and boats. And like, I don't know how many times more attendees they had than what they were anticipating, but it was like mayhem, dude. And the riders just embraced it all. And like they were interacting with their fans for the first time. And this is Northern California, like Shasta.
Okay,
so like NorCal's like pretty edgy, you know, like stereos thumping and like, you know, extended pylons being used for other things than wakeboarding and just madness. And so it was, you know, I got there in 1998 to the magazine and there were still echoes of this like monumental lifestyle event, which really set the pace for like a lot more of that stuff. And they did Boardstock for many years after that. But the one event I'll tell you that still carries that vibe that I was fortunate to be the live site announcer for last year was Wakefest, TNT Wakefest. in Tennessee. Like, your cell phones don't work because there's no signal there. And I've heard other riders talk about it on here, but
Oh yeah.
tons of boats, tons of houseboats. And like, that's the vibe, that like Boardstock and all that stuff. So it's just heartwarming to see that, you know, that culture still exists.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, before we dive into, you said 98 was kind of the time you were getting into it. Let's back it up. You were into trick skiing, right?
Sure.
So kind of run through where you grew up, early days on the water, getting into water sports.
Yeah, sure. Twin Lakes, Wisconsin was where our ski team was. I was from Powers Lake, Wisconsin. Born in Milwaukee, but that's where our summer house was. And we weren't a rich family, but my parents like put it together for us to get a cottage like across the street from the lake. And they had this national championship water ski show team that myself came from, Dano the Mano, Eric Ruck, and Anthony Monaco. So we all ended up in Orlando working in the industry. But that's how like passionate we were about, you know, this activity. And trick skiing was probably my first love. There were some dudes that came before me named the Dunteman family, Matthew Dunteman. They were these working class heroes that worked construction during the day and came to the Aquanaut show site and would trick ski and freestyle jump off the ramp. And they work hard, play harder. And then after practice, they were like smashing a 12-pack in the parking lot, hooting and hollering and like going out, where's the party, like type of guys, high energy. And I was just so drawn to that. You know, being a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, I just looked at these guys and you kind of
getting after
see something and then you think, you know, I'm definitely going to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah, so they were great. And trick skiing was awesome. And I think we were talking the other day. Our style was different than the traditional 3-event trick skiing. So we were in shows and we had crowds. So we weren't trying to trick ski for points. Like every trick is assigned a point in 3-event water skiing. We were basically freestyle trick skiers, you could say. And looking back, we were essentially wakeboarding on our trick skis because I skipped a lot of the tricks along the way. I learned some basics from some people down here at Cypress Gardens in the winter. And, but, you know, in my head, it was, what's the hardest trick?
Yeah.
I want to try that.
And what looks the coolest?
Sure.
Yeah.
And like we were doing 540s and flips and trying tricks that hadn't been done before, or at least we weren't aware of tricks being done because there's no internet or videos around. So we were trying and doing some things that had never been done on trick skis. So when wakeboards came along, it was that board right there.
Scurfer for the listeners.
And, you know, we were kind of like, oh, because the sandal boots just weren't cutting it.
Yeah.
So it was just a toy, right? It was just something to cruise around on. Didn't take it seriously. Even the first compression molded boards still had sandal boots on them, sandal bindings. And then when high wrap boots came out, mine was like the Connolly Razor. That was a game changer. And I don't think I've strapped on a trick ski after that.
I was going to ask, so is wakeboarding just a better version of trick skiing?
If you're asking me, and I'm giving, you know, my honest Grab Matters opinion, I mean, that's the course I took.
Yeah.
You know, I did remember getting back on a trick ski and being way better than I was after having wakeboarded a bunch. Yeah. But we were looking for this. We were looking for more air all the time, like higher. You know, I didn't do a lot of the toe hold tricks where you put your foot in the rope.
Yeah.
So, you know, we wanted to do flips and spins and like.
Yeah, like you said, wakeboarding on trick skis.
And the first time I, you know, hit the wake, it was an inboard ski boat, Ski Ray, made by Sea Ray. Dave Briscoe had one at Ski Away Ski School, and I was like down there with Zane Schwank and some of those guys. The first time I hit the wake, you know, with boots and a proper compression molded board, it was just game over. Yeah. Like that's all I wanted to do. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the progression of you see it at 10, 12 years old, see the guys getting after it. Okay. I like this vibe.
Yeah.
I want to do this for my life. Walk through, I guess, becoming, you know, of age, 16, 18 years old, and then that progression to moving to Florida eventually. Like, are you into competitions at this point? Like, or is it still just show skiing? I guess walk through that transition.
Yeah, sure. Well, when I just turned 18, I'd won a national award in the amateur show ski ranks. And so that was my ticket to any professional show in the world, of which there were probably 15 different options at the time. Liability was You know, insurance and stuff was less then, even though it's hard to, there was just more options for shows around the world. So, yeah, my sister and I went to Japan, first gig as a paid, you know, water skier, my first professional gig. So I think I had just turned 19 when I went on that trip. And then skied at Marine World. That was like a SeaWorld park in Northern California. Fell in love with NorCal. And then ended up at SeaWorld San Antonio. Did that for 2 summers. These are the best years. You can't imagine life being any more fun than, you know, we do 4 shows a day. At Marine World, there were 3,000 people a show, steady crowds, like big time.
Yeah.
Big time interest. And, you know, we had brand new boats every year, Masscrafts, Nautiques were at SeaWorld, and, you know, huge crowds. You're signing autographs and taking photos for 20 minutes after every show. Like, ton of interest in water sports in general. And then we at SeaWorld, we were contracted by World Entertainment, who is owned by World Publications, who published Waterski Magazine, Wakeboarding Magazine, and a bunch of other water sports titles. So I had an injury. Freestyle jumping is gnarly business, and you end up getting hurt at some point. And I had my degree. I had a college degree in mass communications. My mom made me stay in college as much as I tried to get out. And, oh, Mom, I could take night classes. Yeah, I'll still finish. She's like, no, you're staying in school in Wisconsin. So I was, you know, in La Crosse, Wisconsin at college, and then summers I was gone.
Yeah.
Marine World or Japan or SeaWorld, and I come back like the night before classes. You know, we'd have a kegger and like tell stories about the summer. And I knew I was living a different life than like my homies at college and stuff. So they just saw me as this like oddball thing. But all my good friends knew, like, I already knew what I was going to do after college. So anyways, how that relates to Florida, had an injury. I called up World Entertainment, Tom Weber, icon, great manager there. And I have a great reverence and respect for him. I said, hey, man, I'm hurt. Like, I got my degree. Are they hiring at the magazines? He said, oh, let me check for you. And this was 9 a.m. And I had a deal at noon. So I'm in San Antonio, Texas. They're like, fax us your resume. It's like, faxes are still a thing. And I faxed that in at 9 a.m. and had a job at noon. And I hit the road. I put a boat on top of my minivan. It was like a clown boat, like a wash tub, like a bathtub boat that they want me to bring from SeaWorld, Texas to SeaWorld Orlando. I had a minivan, Ford Aerostar, bullhorns on the hood, and like wakeboard fins out the roof, 4-inch wakeboard fins out the roof. It's called the Switch. Wakeboard stickers all over it. A golden throne in the middle instead of like a bench seating. It was like a red velvet chair with like golden.
Sounds like something Eric Brock would drive around too.
Completely, yeah, it's totally. And so I roll into World Publications my first day, and the muffler is blown out on this thing. You know, I was just like coming in pretty loud.
Coming in hot, dude.
But I was on time, and I step out. I remember I was in khakis and like a little polo shirt or whatever, but everyone in the parking lot was like walking into work too. Like, who the hell is this guy? Like,
where'd the new guy
who's
come
the
from?
new guy? Like bullhorns, whole deal. And then like kind of just, we were launching websites. So I got basically a data entry position was my first position there. And we were, you know, keying in every product in the industry, the whole boating industry basically. But, you know, I was obviously interested in all the wakeboards and stuff. And dude, I walked into Tom James's office. Everyone was so cool, like super cool right off the bat. Tony Smith, he'd be a great interviewer on the show. Like, he's one of the smartest, funniest, best writers we've ever had. And he took me under his wing immediately. And I just went and sat down in his cube. He's like, what's up, man? And he's just one of those guys you just like hit it off with, and he's super intelligent. And he just took me under his wing. He's like, yeah, come check out Tom James's office. He was the editor at the time. He's the one that started Wakeboarding Magazine. And go in, and there's boards everywhere, brand new boards. And dude, I was still like lucky to get wakeboards at the time. Like, my friend Anthony Monaco was riding for Liquid Force, and that was sweet. But I like tried to ride it in a river current, like attached to a tree, and lost the boards. Like, I was devastated on my like bad luck with new boards. And I walk into a room, and it's like every new board on the market that they were testing. And like, yeah, grab one, whichever one you want. Dude, I just had goosebumps. I was like going through these boards, like, can I take 2? You know, like take whatever, man. So it was rad, like straight off the bat at World Publications.
Diving right in. Okay.
Yeah.
So before we dive into the, that career a little bit, did you ever want to be a pro wakeboarder? Was that ever something that crossed your mind at any point?
I mean, of course, like Hot Summer Nights was taken off on ESPN2, and we used to sit there, the ski team would watch Hot Summer Nights, and the wakeboarding thing was awesome. I loved the mixture of personalities, like the Skiboarders versus the wakeboarders and how they interviewed and their characters. And it was like way more freedom of expression and personality was involved in wakeboarding. That's what drew me in. And yeah, I was definitely gunning for that. Like I was trying Mobes. I was like pretty close on Mobe. I mean, but this is 95.
Okay.
So, I mean, you could turn pro if you like had a Mobe, or, you'd be up, in a short list of guys doing that trick. So I was hucking those, and like, I don't know. I was essentially paid to wakeboard in the SeaWorld show. So I guess you could say but I was never like a pro wakeboarder, but I competed in hundreds of amateur events, in all the divisions, men's 1, men's 2, masters, veterans, like all those.
Yeah. So
I have like too many contest jerseys. I should be way better at wakeboarder just for the amount of events I rode. I just forget all the practice.
You're getting some reps in.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so, you did touch on something there, though, that I think that I'd like to dive into a little bit more, which is, and you mentioned this earlier when we were on the phone talking, the duality of skiboarders and wakeboarders, and kind of how, I don't know if culture is the right word, but like how there were these two differences, and you liked the yin and the yang of that, it seemed.
Yeah, especially now, being a promoter and an ambassador and telling stories. Because what we saw happen over time, I judged the juniors and watched them all grow up and grow into their riding styles. Over time, the juniors started to ride exactly like Harley or exactly like Corey, or, the styles became similar. And maybe it's because like, oh, I need a Crow 5 to compete with so-and-so, and I get it. And that's what happened over the years. But in the beginning, dude, you had Skiboarders, like just Huck and Rayleighs, and then you had Byerly coming through and like totally messing up the game. And you'd watch a pro men's final, and there'd be 8 different riders.
You mean style-wise? Like, yeah.
8 totally different riders. And part of the reason why everyone thought Scott was so cool is because, like, in contrast to the Skiboarders, he was way freaking cool, But if everyone rode like Scott or tried to ride like Scott, it wouldn't have been as cool, I don't think, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, do you think there's any way that could ever be a thing again, or is it just that was the time, and it was Skiboarders and wakeboarders, and now it's kind of funneled into its final form, you could say?
I wouldn't agree. I would say that us can do whatever the hell we want with this sport, and that's what makes it so great. As a contest judge, I can tell you, sitting in the boat all day, you don't want to see dudes riding the same. Like, that's where, like, I just wait for a Dean Smith or a Keith Lyman or someone to come off the dock and ride differently. So I know it's going to happen, and it's like a way to increase your percentages, whatever. But, dude, look at Mossy and, like, riders like that. I see it. I still see it, Yeah. But in general, if I was a junior, if I was, like, helping mentor a junior, like, which I'm doing now at my current job, helping juniors and, like, especially water skiers, I'm stuck in this discipline, and it's just, like, I don't know. It's so vanilla, dude. It's like sugar-free vanilla sometimes.
Gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free vanilla.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, I don't know. I like an edge. I think an edge is more marketable.
Oh, yeah.
And, you want to be on that line. Like, right on the line of, like, getting in trouble but not, but you might sometimes get in trouble. Like, and that's what, Liquid Force and, like, Wake Tech and, like, they always embraced was, like, that edge. And that's what wakeboarding kind of always had. Wake skating even more.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of go back to the mag, because you said starting with data entry, doing some probably very boring, I would say, stuff at the beginning. So how does that progress into, I guess how does your career progress there over the next few years?
Yeah. Well, very quick. The they found me for photo shoots because if there's any talent in the building, they would use you like as a wakeboarder in a photo shoot or boat driver. So I was on the cover of Boating Life magazine with like these 2 girls from the office. And so once they start using you for photo shoots, you're gold because then you got fun.
You're in content, baby.
And then you're like, yeah, you're a content creator. And so Tony Smith asked me to write a mid-season board review. So there would be boards that would come out in June or July, and they're mid-season board releases, which is probably a glamorized term for we didn't make it to press for the proper model year. But sometimes there's some exciting shapes and like stuff cool that would come out.
Too,
and so Tony, you know, writing up product reviews was probably the lowest job on the totem pole that the editors never really wanted to do. And so he said, hey, take a crack at this, you know. And I remember like it was funny. There were like boards called like Badass was the brand out at the time. And I was involved in the websites. Like whatever you do, do not Google, you know, this brand. But it was just, Tony was like, had a great way of like education and comedy, like all wrapped in. So I was riding these new boards and all of a sudden that became my column or my section was the new product review. So I started doing that every month. And Bill McCaffrey was our West Coast editor. And Tony and Bill, they were pushing the needle in the magazine. And
explain that a little bit.
Yeah, it was great. And I was living it, man. And I was like such a wake fan and here in the Hollywood of wakeboarding and seeing all this go on. And these guys were like, Bill was from Seattle area. So he had that kind of grunge, like anti
PNW action.
Bill was, he was really fiery back then. And he had a column called Fumes where he would roast wakeboarders in the magazine. Like, yeah. And so there was some stuff in there that riders would get pissed off at. And Bill was the West Coast editor. And like, I started looking at it and seeing the style and the West Coast style. And I just really respected like the way they rode, you know, because I was essentially East Coast-ish, like Florida, whatever. I came from water ski background.
Yeah.
What? Dude, these guys are sick. Like whatever they stood for and the way they rode and their lifestyle. And, you know, they're jerks sometimes, like about it, but they're young. So whatever. And so Bill and Tony end up, you know, like Bill left first. And then Bill was going to start a magazine. Wakeboarding became part of the Blue Torch group. And so Bill went off to start, and it was a big action sports conglomerate. So there's surf, skate, snow, wake, I think some other titles. But Bill went off to start that. It was no big deal. He was just the West Coast editor. Like, okay, like we don't have to deal with the backlash from Fumes every month, you know? And then a couple months in, and I was roommates with Tony Smith because he took me under his wing. Greg Necrason was our landlord in Orlando. We lived right across the street. Dude, Mastercraft was hooking me up with X-Stars. I probably had like 3 or 4 X-Stars on Lake Killarney, just right across the street from World Pub at the Winter Park Village there. And, you know, coming into work in wet trunks and the office, people hated us. But, like, we had the most profitable magazine in the whole company. Like, our EBITDA rating, I think, was 1 or 2 out of, like, 30 titles at the building. So I'm sure we'll get into
because
that.
It's earnings before interest, depreciation, tax,
amortization, or something like that. It's basically
it's how people see
profitability. Yeah. So Tony comes into work one day. I think he kept it from me because we were such good friends, and like he was like my older brother basically. He probably just didn't want to taint. Like he knew he was setting me up. He was really smart, man, and I think he was setting me up to take over the reins at some point or just a smooth baton pass, but he didn't tell me that. So he was just kind of Obi-Wan Kenobiing me, you know, into some things. And then he told work first. He said, I'm going to go work with Billy at Blue Torch. And that was a huge shakeup. And I was living with him. All of a sudden he's a competitor and like all this stuff. So I remember Tony came in one day. I was just chilling like in the apartment in the condo. And he's like, something must have happened. They must have got an advertiser that day or someone like board company came on board and Kim's walking in and he's like, it's it, man. It's over. I'm like, what? He's like, you guys are going down. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, man, it's over. And I was just like, well, dude, like, can I just work with you guys so that's going to happen? Like, I didn't care. Like, I I didn't tattoo WBM on me yet. You know, maybe later that it became like in my blood, but I was just a wakeboarding fan.
Yeah.
And these guys were leaving and I didn't know what was going on. So anyways, they found Jeff Barton, JB. He was already doing a magazine called Launch out of San Diego, California, which was another like super cool magazine. And I think the distribution from Launch turned into Blue Torch's distribution. So they weren't totally related, but I think the mailing list got transferred over to Blue Torch to give them a little head start. And JB was just out and about because Launch had folded and he was available, and the publishers really liked him because he had like this energetic personality. So they sent JB on a trip to Japan with like Byerly and Murray while Tony was still editor, I think, because they had brought JB in as like a sales guy, but he wasn't really a sales guy. And so I know there's some rub going on there, and everyone knows JB from announcing, you know, tour stuff back in the day and everything. So he became editor for a grip of years, like probably in the 2000 to maybe 2000-ish. And he was great editor and another great mentor, friend of mine, still to this day, one of my best friends. So he ended up becoming editor, but when he bailed, he was only there for a couple of years. He started a family and moved back to New Jersey, and but JB's the legend. And there was a whole interview process going on, man, and they're bringing in people from like Transworld and like all these other BMX titles and stuff, and I'm just sitting there doing the mag all on my own, getting paid crap money, and like just wake fan, sitting here quiet, sitting here. And like, I think I had an interview, but I don't ever remember.
You mean interview to be editor of?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think I remember them taking me too seriously at that.
Interesting.
Yeah. But when you come in and you start out any job, like for anyone out there, like wants career advice, if you come in at a low salary at a company, like you're not just going to get a 30% raise one year. Like they'll give you cost of living increases, and you're going to have to leave and come back to, which I did twice. And, you know, that's the only way to really get ahead, unless it's like a huge title change or you go to sales like Benny G kind of did. Yeah. Went from editorial to sales.
That's percentage based on success.
Incentivized. Yeah. So, but yeah, they didn't take me serious, even though I was doing the whole mag. I was writing the editor's letter, like whole deal. So, yeah, it's long journey. It's never a straight line, you know, the career path, but yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, a couple of things to unpack there. One with Blue Torch, which eventually became Alliance, correct? Mm-hmm. So their attitude though, at the beginning sounded like we're going to take Wakeboarding Mag down.
Oh,
you guys are done.
It was no secret. They were like flaming us in the mag, like roasting us.
What would they say? What were they talking about?
Just like any chance they had in like their letter section or like whatever. And then the websites started coming out and they clown us online.
Just because you're more corporate or like more by the book kind of?
Corporate tour. But, dude, we did what worked, and it was product and instruction. And that's what the readers wanted. And we had the readership, and like, I feel like I brought more of the athlete lifestyle, you know, professional as much as I could. Like I embedded myself in the scene. And maybe if I hadn't been there, it would have been more structured product instruction and stuff. And we had some other editors that were living it too. But yeah, Alliance was there to take us down. Like they had shirts that said "Go Number 2," and like, but it was all in good fun. Like it was never my name. Like they never roasted.
Wasn't personal.
It wasn't personal. Yeah. But I mean, when you're the one that created content that there's, you know, so it was competitive.
Yeah.
I felt like it was healthy. And, you know, I was told by those guys, like we were going down and it was over, and like, it never happened, dude. Like we were the most widely distributed, most popular, most readership, most revenue. So like, you know, we did what worked, but it's like another yin and yang. Yeah. Like we needed the core mag and then like the mainstream mag. Like it's just how it worked.
Yeah, because you have those two audiences, and usually the core one is a lot smaller, but you still got to keep them entertained. And like, it sounds like that was the kind of Alliance.
Yeah, and so you know, nothing but respect. And now I work with those guys on tour and stuff like Alliance is the media partner for the Pro Wakeboard Tour now, which was always the world
full circle type situation.
Yeah. They used to clown the tour, bro. So yeah, it's funny how that all. But we're all homies, and
well, it's too small to.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay, I think we take a little pause, and we dive into the LF'n wheel of questions presented by Liquid Force here. And we're going to do something a little different. So go ahead and grab that wheel down.
The LF'n wheel of questions.
Okay, let's go.
And instead of doing the typical, steal a trick, go, all that stuff, since you've had your hand in wakeboarding for so long, I got a list of names on here. These are all Liquid Force. I believe these are all Liquid Force past riders, or maybe some present on there too. But and we're just gonna keep it simple, and you're just gonna comment on their career. So you're gonna spin this 3 times, and just whoever it lands on, you can comment. So it could be a story. It could be.
Do I get to order a Liquid Force board after all this?
We'll do it.
I got some boots, maybe. I can use some boots.
We can figure that out. That's not for me to make the decision, but I just did. So go ahead and give that a spin there.
All right, dude.
1 of 3. We're gonna do it 3 times. Hopefully, it doesn't land on the same one twice. But all right, who we got?
Shane Bonifay.
Shane Bonifay.
What a guy, man. Just comment on the career.
Comment on the career. Yeah, you can kind of take whatever direction you want. I think you got a lot.
I met Shane. He was in diapers. My sister was taking water ski lessons from his mom. Parks was 3, already barefooting. And, Parks was like the guy, like ski baby and like superstar wakeboarder. And Shane kind of came in and just found his own style and his own personality. And Shane's like all comedy. You've had him on the show.
Yeah.
Like, I watched that episode and like he's like grinning the whole time, and that grin was just Shane's.
It's infectious.
He's such a master of like just vibing through any situation, and I think one of the best performances I've seen him have was at a Double or Nothing. He did like some crazy 7.
I think it was back 7. It was either I think it was toe back, could have been heel back. I don't know, but.
Yeah, it was like something different, and then stuff he was doing later on the kickers. I remember he like hurt his ankle trying trick of the year one time. He was like progressing really like big time off kickers at the end. But those stories that he told and the sponsorship, and dude, he brought marketability, like true value, to where his sponsors aren't sitting there like, oh, what's our ROI on having Shane Bonifay on the team? Like. That wasn't a question, dude. Like, Shane was wakeboarding, and he had good style, and everyone liked him. Like, he's very likable. And, to be able to watch someone from the age of 3 years old, I saw him every year, like, on our trips to Florida. Cool. And then I moved to Orlando. And I sold one of his dreadlocks one time on eBay to, like, raise money for Pointless.
How much it go for? You remember?
I don't remember.
$50,
man,
$100.
Back then, that would be some decent. Dude, when I moved to Orlando, it was $5 to wakeboard. Like instead of bringing gas, if you're gonna give someone cash, it's $5.
Remember how much you were making at the mag that first year? You remember?
Crap.
You remember what?
It was
hourly?
Really bad. It was really I was hourly, but it ended up being a salary. Like you had benefits, and I had 401k that but it was really bad money. Yeah, it was really bad. Yeah.
Do you remember how bad we talking? We're talking minimum wage basically, or what?
I mean, I don't know what minimum.
Damn near.
I don't know. I don't know what it was at the time, but I was in debt. I went in debt my first year working.
Really?
Yep. Went in debt on my credit card. Freaked out, dude.
Just like with rent and payments and stuff.
Yep. I had apartment. My apartment was $425 a month, right down the road from the offices. That's how cheap apartments were, and like couldn't make ends meet. And my dad wouldn't bail me out. And so I just started, I think that's when I started judging contests and stuff and like just doing a little more. You had to side hustle. I had to side hustle to like
credit card bills a little high.
Any of that work. Like, yeah. So Dad's like, what's your credit card bill? I was like, X. And he's like, well, that's how much you need to make more next year, obviously.
Yeah, Dad, I know.
Oh, okay, finances. Okay, I get it.
Man.
Yeah, Shane, love you, man. Shane's like one of the best things that ever happened to wakeboarding.
Great guy. He crushed a couple of Modelos on the pod. So go give another spin.
Eight of them.
2 tree.
Oh, Benny G.
Benny G.
What
another recurring guest.
Yeah. Dude, awesome guy. He touched on a lot of like our interactions on his podcast, but obviously great style. His riding was described as deliberate. So he thought of everything in his head, exactly how to poke, and
it comes through.
He's super hard on himself. Great guy at looking at both sides of any equation. So if there's a problem, you know, in business or whatever, he's always like a balanced, level-headed dude. When he signed with Quicksilver, that was a game changer for, you know, athletes and like
Big company.
that was a big company. That was a big move. He won Rider of the Year with Alliance. I think I ran 2 covers with him at Wakeboarding. And yeah, the second one was just, he had just had a cover. So it was like quick, you know, turnaround, but it was just one of those great shots. And he's one of those riders you go out and shoot photos with, you're going to get money shots. I published a calendar after the mag dropped, the print calendar. I picked it up independently and I put him on the cover of that. And we became better friends after all that stuff. He asked me after I was gone from the mag, he's like, hey, they're recruiting me and what should I do? I was like, do it, bro. Just go do it. Like, if you don't like it, you can figure something else out, but just do it. Even though I was a little, you know, scorned at the time, you know, after putting your heart and soul into something and at the end's not always the best part, I still tell him, like, go for it, dude. And I don't know, he's married, 2 sons, and he's just a great example of a wakeboarder who made it his own way, and he was a free rider style guy and made it, you know,
and then transitioned well, which is really cool.
And transitioned well, and now he's like in the business world and super smart, and NEG.
Still wondering what that Quicksilver contract looked like. Couldn't weasel it out of him, but let's give
Ask Corey Murata.
Yeah, okay,
I'm pretty sure he brokered that deal.
All right, third spin
more
here, yeah. These are good spins.
Melissa. Sweet.
Love it. I think you said you wanted to talk about this one. So this is,
she's great. This is the 10th anniversary issue of Wakeboarding Magazine. I was on hiatus and came back to the magazine. This was the biggest issue that we ever published. So
June 2003, yeah.
Yeah, June 2003. It's 212 pages, so it's like a, you know, and
She's
Melissa had the contract for the back cover. So every issue was Melissa on the back cover.
I didn't know that's how that worked.
Yeah.
So she gets a contract specifically just for the back cover.
I think Rip Curl had it.
Interesting.
And like they would always run. It was either her or Daniel Watkins usually on the back covers. So, but look at this rickety SoCal rail. She
textbook.
Yeah, Melissa has arguably the greatest style of a female wakeboarder ever. It was definitely the cool West Coast style. She was riding with, you know, Randall and Ricky G and Kyle Murphy and all those guys, and rad person, great human, super sweet, super nice. She would ride in contests, and she'd always do this big, you know, girls were doing like a lot of wake to wake stuff, and then Melissa would come out. You know, girls like Dallas and stuff would go big on flips, but you wouldn't see. Melissa would come in full Rayleigh cut and then just do a big stale fish and land in the flats. And that was her like Rayleigh trick, you know, because it was like a category. There was like spins, inverts, tech, and then like we had kind of a category for like glides or like Rayleigh tricks originally, but hers was a big stale fish into the flats. She did that gnarly waterfall.
Yep. I'll see if I can.
Cover of Alliance.
Definitely can find the photo. I don't know.
Yeah. And then she lives out in Oceanside with Kyle and their son Koa. And I crash out there when I go to SoCal, and they've always been super accommodating. And like, she's probably right up there, my favorite female riders of all time.
Yeah, she is. She's definitely up there for the GOAT conversation too. I mean, obviously Dallas is an easy answer people give, but I think Melissa is. Oh
yeah,
she's the conversation can be had, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
put it that way. So,
yeah,
love that. All right, thanks to Liquid Force for that. We can go ahead and put the
right on
LF'n wheel of questions back there. All right, I think we dive back into some more Wakeboarding Mag days. And I guess for the context here, what years did you work at Wakeboarding Mag? Do you remember off the top of your head?
98 to 2011.
Okay, so you were there, I would say, for the heights of wakeboarding, in terms of popularity and stuff. So I'm curious on a lot of stuff when it comes to the ins and outs of magazines, of selling the ads, the margins involved, some of the numbers, I guess. And if you have any of those on top of your head to run through, like, just curious on how all that goes down, because you said this is 212 pages, like it's a lot of ad space. Mm-hmm. So how does that work?
Yeah, they would cap us out at like, I think probably 78 or 80 pages of edit. So the rest would be ads. But I would encourage, you know, we working with the Billabongs and O'Neills and everybody, I was always encouraging them to do cool advertisements because not everyone cares. If it's a cool shot, it's a cool shot. So, yeah, we had, I think it was about 3 million in revenue. And the magazine was probably profiting like $1 million of that. And, I wasn't seeing much of that, but I was living, extravagant lifestyle. So Billabong and Liquid Force and Hyperlight and Nike and Red Bull, and they're all doing trips. They all wanted me to go. I started shooting photography, helping produce videos. We always sponsored videos, so they knew if I was coming, they were going to get some ink. But we had, probably like 3 or 4 staff on editorial at the height, at the most. One would be web, and then there'd be an editor, a managing editor. We probably would only have 3 on editorial at the most. And then there were 2 dedicated sales reps and then some publishers that would float around and do like boating and wakeboarding and waterski magazine and stuff. And then the company was 300 people at the time. And so we had full pre-press
What company do you mean?
Like circulation departments. It was World Publications, and somewhere around 2000, it turned into Bonnier Corporation, which was a huge worldwide media entity that was super successful. And this was all before the iPad came out, and that was the beginning of the end.
Well, we'll
for all that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I launched those websites in '98, and it was cool, and it was a place for us to print more current information. I remember doing an article with Danny Harf when he was a Grom, and we do some exclusive stuff online, and I posted their first video of all time, and it did okay. But magazines had vitality, dude. Like, magazines were hot, like, the whole time I was there, even through 2011. Websites did not, eclipse magazines until social media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I guess run through launching the site, because you launched the Wakeboarding Mag site, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know anything about websites before? I mean, was that all a self-taught process of?
Yeah.
They're like, we need a website.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I got this.
Well, we had IT developers that they spent way too much money on, like, to, launch all the sites.
That's where that $1 million is going.
So, yeah. But I quickly learned, like, HTML hard coding, like ahref equals quotes.
I'm nodding like I know, but no,
yeah, that's how you make a link. That's how you make a hyperlink, and you just learn little things here and there. Subject, question mark, and that would like mail to. It was another one that you could click a link and it would open up your email and send it to them with a preloaded subject. You could like hard code that stuff into your websites. And so I was learning. I was into it. It was definitely a avenue that was taking off, and I knew the wakeboarding audience was going to be like so
eating it up.
Yeah, rabid for it. But I also launched waterskimag.com, prowakeboardtour.com, and prowaterskitour.com. So I launched 4 websites.
Wow, .com mogul.
It was 98. That's a big boom. Yeah, just riding that wave.
So speaking of the mag, I mean, so the website obviously took a while to gain traction. It seemed like in terms of, once social media started popping off, then websites like this, I think, started doing better. But in terms of the mag, did you ever have to grow any magazines in terms of the size of the mag to be able to include, like, you had advertisers coming to you saying, hey, we want to run ads, Did you ever have to be like, well, we only have 100X pages here. We need to add more to just get the ad. Did that ever happen where it's like, yeah, we need ad pages to get more ads to make more money?
Yeah, and we weren't in the business of saying no to advertisers that wanted to, buy
Why would you?
So, but, Benny G touched on it.
Yeah.
And he had heard these stories, and we were the case study for like the rest of the company as like the heyday of when, it's not like times or when, Wakeboarding Magazine had Billabong would call last minute, O'Neill would call last minute. We had the Truth campaign, which was like an anti-smoking campaign.
Yeah.
That was in Action Sports. I think it was funded by Philip Morris. They had to do it. So that was just like, stuff was just rolling in. But yeah, we would stop the press. And a form is 8 pages. So if you're going to go up, you have to go up 8 pages.
Okay.
And so maybe 2 of those would be spread ads, and then I'd have to come up with 4 pages just in a day.
Of content, you mean?
Yep. we'd be like, what photos do we have? Oh, Danny Harf and the boys and Pointless guys came over and they just did backyards. We're like, oh, yeah, whatever. After school, a bunch of photos and like quotes and stuff like that. But we had, I mean, there's never a problem.
Yeah.
Like filling pages. It was like a good problem.
Well, it's a perfect problem to have. You have money coming in, you make more content.
But those are the indicators that, you know, like something's going right.
Yeah.
Or out for the business and for the sport was when like, because when that's not happening, it's obvious.
It's loud,
Yeah,
very loud. So yeah, let's talk about the ebbs and flows a little bit because you've been around, you know, a while and you've seen, I guess, how would you describe wakeboarding's popularity and the money involved in the sport over the years you've been in it? So, you know, 98 on, obviously it goes up and down and up and down. And I guess I'm curious on what were some of the causes that maybe you saw for that, or maybe you didn't really correlate, or just walk through the ups and downs a little bit, I guess.
Dude, I mean, from that stretch that we're keying in on here, the only down was the recession of 08, 09.
Yeah.
And that started in real estate. So people thought their homes were worth more than they were worth, and they took out a home equity loan. They're buying freaking wakeboard boats.
Yeah, watch The Big Short if you're not familiar.
Funny money that didn't exist. So it started in California, actually, and some dealers started going belly up out there. So that was like our first kind of indication of that. And then it became like the recession. I was the main editor at the time, so I kind of knew my job was protected. Like they needed someone to, you know, but
unless if the whole thing's going down, you're going to be there.
Yeah. So I don't know. I could probably look in the archives. Maybe the issues got a little thinner. I don't know. It was never like scary though.
Okay.
It was like, we're going to make it out of this. Wakeboarding was so dialed and like such a great sport, but the boats would get more expensive over the years. And then, you know, we had the Boat Buyer's Guide. That was kind of a water ski magazine supplement, but I tested all the wakeboard boats from 98 to 2011. So I rode behind every single boat that came out of a factory, which was a super cool experience. And, you know, I would be in the factories. I'd been through factories like dozens of times, and you'd see, you know, them scaling back, but it was never scary as far as like the sport's going to be in trouble or anything like that. So, I mean, it was this, dude. Besides that recession, the excitement was always this, but, you know, you just saw teams growing. I guess that was another big indication. The LF team at one point was completely ridiculous. The Hyperlight team at one point was even more ridiculous. Hyperlight had Murray, Byerly, Parks, Ruck, like Rathy and JD. I say Byerly, BT, and like that whole radar like group that year. I'd go to their photo shoots every year, and it's just like a Chad Sharp, Danny Harf, all those guys.
It's the who's who.
Were on the same team. And then Liquid Force stacked, dude. Like all, you know, a bunch of those riders. And like once you started seeing that happening and you saw how many riders were on payroll, it's like, okay. Like,
boards are getting sold.
Boards are selling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boats as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a little bit different question, I guess. And you can go wherever you want with this one, but I'm curious your answer is, you know, what is a media company's responsibility when it comes to a sport? So what is, in your eyes, Wakeboarding Magazine's responsibility to the sport of wakeboarding, water skiing, all that stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question, and like not one I took lightly. But to make light of it, I will quote one of my favorite Jimmy Redmond quotes. It was, freedom of the press is most enjoyed by those who own the presses. And he'd always criticize my bosses, like the publishers of at Wakeboarding Magazine. My responsibility, I felt just naturally compelled to honor the careers of athletes who were putting everything into the sport, because I was one of those athletes who kind of had my ticket, you know, to live the dream. And so I always had great joy out of like enabling that. And then, you know, photography, I'm a third generation photographer. So I really like took an interest in taking care of the photographers, even though we didn't have a big budget. If you start getting spreads run or get a cover run on Wakeboarding Magazine, all of a sudden you're getting hired by Fox, Billabong. Like you were getting the contracts for like the big money. Rodrigo still shoots Malibu boats, you know, and like we weren't able to pay a lot. I think it was like $500 for a cover shot, probably $300 for a spread. But if you were getting those, and then we'd hire photographers for trips too. But what was our responsibility? I mean, the mission statement always would have a value for the reader. So it was to engage the reader, and you know, we're kind of selling the sport as, you know, the best lifestyle on the planet. And
which it is, by the way.
Yeah, the value proposition though was product and instruction. And so it wasn't just all the pro riders had their own criticisms of every magazine when it ever came out.
Of course.
But Tom James was really brilliant at this, and he'd say, Kev, like, this isn't Pro Riders Journal. You know, and I always thought of that. That always came into my head. I'm like, yeah, man, because if you do just what the pros want, that's not what the mainstream wants. Like, they want how to do a 360 or how to, you know, and the new gear guide. Pros are going to be like, whatever. I just saw it at Surf Expo. I don't care. But
guess what? You're not the one buying it either.
Yeah. Totally. So that was, you know, what's the value and what's the role? It's to engage participants and grow the pool of potential wakeboarders. I think we got to like, at one point it was like 3.2 million wakeboarders. So you'll appreciate this. Skateboarding had 12 million participants. Snowboarding had 8 million. Wakeboarding had 3.2 million. And surfing, ocean surfing, rail surfing, had 1.5 million.
Is this like people that identify as a wakeboarder? If you
frequent participants.
Okay.
More than just like a couple times a year.
Yeah.
So wakeboarding was way ahead. Obviously, the surfing lifestyle market was way bigger. But as far as participants go, wakeboarding had more than surfing, way more.
More accessibility in America.
So, and that's they're looking to do it. Because I remember being a kid growing up in the pro shops, there was like O'Neill and stuff, and I thought it was cool. But they truly saw, okay, they're wearing sunglasses, they're wearing trunks, they're wearing wetsuits and vests, and we always wanted to be able to connect the coast, and that's literally why they look to wakeboarding, and that's why you see all the rip curls and O'Neills and Billabongs and all that stuff. So we were in a great position for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's those numbers are interesting because, I mean, I feel like you can find numbers nowadays, and I've looked, and it's like, you know, I don't know how accurate they are anymore and where the numbers even come from, but still shows millions that are, I guess, I don't know the word, identify as a water sport enthusiast or something. So I'm just, where'd they go? Because like the numbers from the brands that are coming in to help sponsor and pay for all this stuff, they still exist, but they're not involved in the sports as much as they used to be. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on why that has changed. If the participation still is there, which obviously it wasn't what it was, but it's still pretty high.
So the ugly reality is that tubing, inflatables, towables, funded a lot of all this. Those big teams I mentioned, like the big Hyperlight team, I know that HO tubes, because you don't have to put much money into.
You're taking money from here and putting it back into.
You don't have to take.
Yeah.
You don't have to advertise. Have you ever seen a tubing advertisement, or like promotional, or like you don't have to do much because it sells itself.
There's no real tech in it either.
And
so
yeah,
it's like,
yeah. So my take on all that is that the numbers really haven't changed, Hunter. If you count every rope that's come tight behind a boat in all these years,
it's a good way to put it like that.
Like, I think you'd be seeing like maybe a dip here.
Nothing crazy though.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But I go back to Wisconsin. That's kind of my litmus test. You see, but everyone uses products and boats of their like non-intended use. I'll see a slalom skier behind a G23 and a like wakeboarder behind a jet ski, and like they just do whatever behind whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more of that going on than like our world knows about. So in the mainstream, and anyone that's done those road tours like Murray and Kobe and Bish and like all those guys that did the backyard tours, that was huge. Like, I got to mention that, and like the success of this thing nationwide, they got RVs and went on the road and did demos in crappy water and truly built the audience with their hands.
Yeah,
and
the
like,
user base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was huge. But I don't agree that like it's going away or like, you know, someone will always be doing something behind a boat.
It would just it's not logical to think that you wouldn't, because the lake houses still exist. They still have docks, and they still have boats on those docks, and they still have gear that needs to be put in the boat to do the tubing and water skiing and all that shit. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting to hear that. I feel like you always kind of thought that, yeah, the money's coming from these volume purchases, which are the tubes and the big Coast Guard approved vests and stuff. And then it's kind of getting shifted into the enthusiast side of the sports, which is wakeboarding, water skiing, and stuff like that. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, you could attribute a lot to wake surfing. Like that's probably the second highest participation category now. Yeah,
one being tubing,
wake surfing. Yeah, like hands down.
Definitely,
that's what's happening. Yeah.
Well, and we'll get into that in a little bit because I'm curious to talk about that. But back to the mag a little bit. You mentioned that wakeboarding was the most profitable mag at in terms of the umbrella of all the things there. So did that allow the people who worked at Wakeboarding Mag a longer leash, I guess, when it came to how you could operate and stuff like that? Because, I mean, you guys are bringing the most money in. So it's like they're doing something right. Something's happening.
Yeah.
That's right,
I mean, the company was founded by water skiers. So it didn't feel like a long leash, but I definitely tested the limits of said leash.
Stretching it out as far as
a couple times. And the guys before me just did that. And that was our nature. And that was wakeboarding's nature. You know, we raised hell like in the offices, and we tested that leash a bunch of times. And I saw marching orders to like be fired multiple times. And Tom James would get my back, and but yeah, we did have a leash. Like, here's a cool example, just quick story. Tom always encouraged me to be in the field. And off one of my hiatuses, I came back and said, I don't want to be the editor. Like, make me senior editor. That's like the lower position, because that was a fun job. So you didn't have to deal with the politics. And you're just like photo shoot coordinator, like, write some features. And I had the most experience at the time, so I was like the go-to guy still, but I didn't have the pressure of being the editor, and that was the fun job. And came into work like midday, and I walked by Tom James' office. He's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I was just like getting some stuff done." And he looks out the window. He's like, "I saw the lakes at lunch. It's all glassy." He's like, "Get out of here." I was like, "Sweet." See ya.
Say no more.
Yeah. Like, so he was just funny like that and cool and support. And he got me like the first digital camera and all that stuff. And when the more and more time I spent there, the more and more they were like, get out in the field. Like, you're the guy in the field. Go do that. And the more they said that, the more I stuck around. And it was just, dude, I'd have goosebumps when they told me that, like, we need you more. It was just more. Like, with the riders, doing instruction, do whatever, get out. Go in the field. And that was our, being in Orlando, Alliance was kind of West Coast. Orlando was like our strong suit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Testing the leash. You always
when
you
walk into an office and your boss is like, what are you doing here? I was like,
what do you mean? What am I doing here? This is where I'm supposed to be. I think it's time for another segment called Deserve Some Love, presented by Driftline. So if you need board shorts, get some Driftline board shorts. They got a wetsuit liner in them. Keep you warm, keep you protected out there. Use the code GRAB15 for 15% off. Link in the show notes. So Deserve Some Love is a segment where you can, highlight. It's either, it can be a sponsored rider, someone who didn't get the love they deserved. You can go wherever you want with it, but you don't have to limit to one name or anything. But if anyone comes to mind that just deserves a little love.
Yeah, it's a cool segment. I've seen it on your other episodes, and I gotta say, man, I'm a big fan of the ambassadors. The people that are just true wakeboard, bloodline, DNA, true wakeboarders, and have ridden and just love the sport, and then are ambassadors for the sport and teach people, how to drive boats and, just welcome people into the sport with open arms. And like, I got to say, Kathy Williams has been one person who like embodied all of those good things about our sport. She worked at Performance for many, many years. And that's who you want to talk to. Like if you're going in to buy some gear, like Kathy's your girl. Now I work for USA Waterski and Wake Sports, and she's been in charge of USA Wakeboard. I think she's going on like 7 or 8 years of volunteer work. So she started the Confident Captain school. So any women out there or anyone really that want to learn how to drive a boat, take care of your boat, trailer it, whatever, Kathy Williams is like running a great business.
Yeah, breaks down those walls, make it real easy.
Yeah, or dealers, like if you're a boat dealer and you want to hire someone, because a lot of times dealers just, we say like throw the keys. I mean, it's a push start, but they literally like don't have instruction. So it'll be new boat owners who don't know how to drive. Kathy's the one to show you how to use your boat, how to trailer it, cover it, back it up, whatever. So yeah, she deserves some love.
Love that one. Mm-hmm. And speaking of Kathy Williams, we actually got have a voice message. I think it's a question from Kathy. So I'm going to go ahead and play that now.
Right on.
I was wanting to know if you would share about being in Congress, sitting there, and the impact it made on boating during COVID. Thanks.
All right. So yeah, when I was at WSIA, Watersports Industry Association, we would lobby on behalf of the greater boating industry, and they would set me up with meetings on the Hill, Capitol Hill, with members of Congress. But my first time ever doing this, Hunter, like you're at this boating event with the National Marine Manufacturers Association, and they kind of train you a little bit, but I was cold. Like I was a rook at lobbying on the Hill, and you're wearing a suit and you're rolling around DC with these other people, and you'd see your meeting schedule and they would set you up with a meeting. And I saw the last one of the day was Bill Nelson, Senator Bill Nelson. So he's a member of the U.S. Congress, and his district crept into Orlando. It was like Windermere and North, like right around here. And so I came to his office. You're in underground tunnels. Everything's underground in DC on the Hill, and you forget where you are. Like you don't know where the hell you are. And so his was at 4 p.m. and I probably had 5 or 6 boating industry professionals that were supposed to meet me for this meeting. They all ghosted. So I'm a rook here it's like my second meeting on the Hill ever, and I'm alone. And like they gave us some materials, talking points and stuff, but I waited. It's like 4:02. I'm like, damn it, it's just me. Here we go. And that's like how I kind of earned my stripes. And he was super cool. They all have an aide who's like younger and kind of takes the notes, and they were like millennial looking at the time, like super sharp, quick-witted, kids. And so we're talking, and he's like, do you know, I'm like, Hevner? He's like, yeah, Bill Hevner. I'm like, yeah, Chase Hevner. Yeah, cool. So we had some
common ground established,
mutual friends. And then the aide's like, hey, Bill Nelson asked to take a photo with me at the end of it. Like it went well. I kind of went off script. And since it was my own time and everyone else bailed, I was like, I'm going to talk about what I care about. Yeah. So we had a handout, and there's like ethanol-free gasoline was one of the things. Like Kathy asked what we did to impact boating. If you see the blue pump with ethanol-free gasoline for boats, like my old ski boat, that's what you run in old boats. That's because of our lobbying efforts. So it's bad for marine engines to have ethanol and gas because it separates. In your car, it's okay because you run your car more often and the components are made to handle it, but the marine industry wasn't ready for ethanol and gasoline. It was a big deal. So we had talking points on that, and Congress voted, and it passed. So that's why you see the blue handle. By the coast, it'll say boat fuel, like boat gas. Stuff like that, and then safety is always a big one. But, I was talking about clean water. The lake I was on was there's water that runs off from the roads in Florida, and there's usually screens, but those screens can go missing, and then like trash is just rolling into the lake. So I was talking about the importance of clean water and doing lake cleanups and how all that, will help us pass the sport on for generations. And then life jackets, I don't know when it's going to happen, but USCG life jackets are supposed to get better. There's supposed to be this level 50 or level 70 or an international standard.
Get better, you mean by not as big and bulky,
Yep.
more of like a mix between coastie and a
because U.S. Coast Guard is only American. So
and it's a big.
What about Canada? What about Australia? What about
Europe,
there was an international standard. It was like a level something, and it was going to be a little sleeker. So I was like, if you ever see that, vote yes. And then we had a good meeting, and he said, would you like to take a photo with me? I was like, hell yeah. I was like, this is going well, you know? So I'm like, take a photo with him. And then I come out of the tunnel, out of his office, and I didn't know where I was. I had to get raced to the airport. And I just walk out the first exit sign I see, and the Capitol's right there. I'm on the steps of the Capitol, just killed it in the meeting with Bill Nelson, and like Uber to the airport and get on the plane. And here's the photo of us together. Like, it was pretty cool, man. It was like, definitely earned my stripes. You know,
well, in real world impacts.
Yeah.
Real things happening.
Yeah. So I ended up going to DC probably like 6 or 8 times on those lobbying trips. And there's always, you know, talking points each year that come up for the greater boating industry. Yeah.
You ever see the president, meet the president?
No, but man, it was a shakeup. The news guys would come and give keynote presentations. Like Wallace, Chris Wallace was one of them, and I forget all the like Fox News, like edgy political journalists would come and like talk trash on Trump because it'd be like no cell phones, no recording. They'd be like, so, we got the real deal. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild. I mean, 6-8 times there is not, you know, you're making a habit out of it at that point, which is pretty cool to see. So you want to do some show and tell? I mean, that's kind of a kooky way to put it, but you brought some things. So I say we dive back into this and take a look at, I mean, mention some of them. We mentioned what was this, 212 page wakeboarding mag, but we I think we do the cassette bag.
You grab whatever you want to grab.
Do the cassette bag.
I just brought a bunch of shiz.
You grab that. Yeah, it's on your side there. So grab that cassette bag here and let's go through.
Probably my favorite collector's item that I still possess.
Yeah. So what is this for the listeners that I'm
So that's an Army surplus bag. Thomas Horrell bought, I think, 10 or 12 of those. He found them all kind of similar style, and he bought them and put those cassette C stamps on them and screen printing. And he gave them to the team and to certain select individuals, and I was lucky to be one of those. And then I just put anything cassette related inside of there.
Wow, Sfumato, original.
VHS, right, that changed everything in wake skating.
So I see Drew McGuckin's name on here.
I
want to talk about him.
Okay.
Actually, I want you to talk about him, actually. So why did he quit pro? Was he a judge that he was, is that what was going on? Or what?
Yeah.
What happened there?
Drew's great. He was one of the original cassette members with Thomas. He was a wakeboarder before that. So that's a printing proof from the magazine to
Thomas
check
Horrell.
to see if your colors are, it's a proof. It's not the actual, So before that, we had 4 film pages behind every page of the magazine. 4 film sheets, CMYK, for color. And if you had to make a change after the film sheets were printed, dude, you're in trouble. That was an underground magazine that Thomas printed and distributed it without letting anyone know who it was. It was an underground magazine. Right up your alley, dude.
Yeah, I'm all about this, dude.
Some of them would be just upside down and backwards, and it's all subliminal. He's really good at subliminal speech and phrases, and is very abstract and so interesting. I was so intrigued by these. I think they're called 1% or something, the magazine was.
Yeah, could you dive into this? Because I see a little snippet here that says banned. Chase Hevener was recently banned from the #1 most important magazine in our sport. Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Great find. I would think that would have been a verbal deal. I think him and JB used to go at it at parties. You know, we'd be at a video premiere, and I think the Hevener family had, something to do on the investor side with Alliance. So naturally, there's going to be a rift with Wakeboarding Magazine. And I think there was some tit for tat stuff going on. And there was never a rider that was actually banned.
Officially banned.
There may have been like some words exchanged verbally as to that. And then, of course, they're going to take that and run, like banned, like it's cool, But that was still in good fun for the most part. But yeah, Drew's on the cover of that cassette. Yeah. Drew's an OG. I judged the tour with him for many years. And Drew, oh man, limited, super limited. I was in the warehouse when he was burning those and printing those. Those are handmade, the Cassette C logo. They were for select dealers like Ambush and stuff. Yeah. Thomas just gave me one. Thomas was the most generous pro athlete to me ever.
Yeah, talk about Thomas a little bit.
He was hooking me up with DVS shoes and bi-level wake skates before they came out to market. And one of the most interesting people I've ever met. We were so different. Some of my best friends and some of the guys that I got along with best were almost directly opposite from my personality. And especially growing up in Wisconsin and meeting these guys from Florida and stuff, it was such a different culture. And then the surfing and skateboarding and snowboarding thing. But Thomas, first day I ever met Thomas, he was over at Tony Smith's office, and Tony Smith said, "Hey man, I'm bringing over," he calls me on the, we had the office phone. I didn't have a cell phone for a long time. And buzzes me on the office phone. He's like, "Hey man, someone I want you to meet. I'm going to bring over Thomas Horrell." I'm like, "Okay. Yeah, I've seen him before in the magazines." Like, his parents ran this Christian family water ski school, and they used his image in their advertising. There's just a weird shot of him in the water, but it was in every issue of Waterski magazine. So I knew who he was.
Yeah, familiar face.
But he's hardcore wakeboarder. It was right before the wooden deck wake skate thing came out, so I think he's still wakeboarding. But Tony was big on Chase and Thomas and the edgy guys, and I was definitely interested and like eager to meet these guys and excited.
Yeah.
Thomas comes over to my office, and I got a picture on the wall, and it's the SeaWorld Waterski team and me in it. So we're all in our team wetsuits and whatever. They weren't cheesy costumes. They're actually like, we had a Pepsi and Mountain Dew.
Sick.
So as Team Pepsi and Team Mountain Dew, we had blue and the other wetsuits were like green and yellow.
Yeah.
So it was like blue and red, green and yellow. Dope, like wetsuits. But Thomas comes over. And like so rude right off the bat. Tony's like, "Hey man, this is Kevin." And Thomas is like, just looks straight on the wall, and he's like, in the team photo, and he's like, "What are you wearing, tights in here?" Like, that's the first thing he said to me. Like, "What are you wearing, tights?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, didn't you used to wear tights at the Christian family water ski school?" He's like, "Oh, dude, like, Tony, where'd you get this guy, man?" And like, we were instant friends. Like, if you can clap back at Thomas, like, he respected me, and he knew that I knew a little bit about him, and like we all went to lunch, and like Thomas and I were like great friends from then on. And he was very intellectual. He shook things up in a great way, and was always up to mischief, and just too intelligent. And he was so far ahead. Everything he did was so far ahead of its time that Postal Service song is like kind of a cheesy example, but he used that Such Great Heights song in, was this Sumato? I forget, but one of those, it might've been. And that song blew up like 10 years later. So he's
got an ear for it.
He was typically 3 years ahead of everything, but sometimes even more. And I was there the day he came up. He had pink hair and missing his front teeth. And he came up with we walked outside, and I saw the first wooden deck ever in wake skating. And, we're standing outside the office, and you just look at this thing, and I had the boat across the street. So we just like took it straight on Lake Killarney, and I went out and was doing front lip slides on the first wooden wake skate ever. None were on the market, and he was wearing shoes, and we were just, so I was I've always been intrigued by anything that's way out of the box behind a boat.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of, yeah. But yeah, Thomas, good friend, man. We still like,
where's he at these days,
Yeah, he's in SoCal.
He's in SoCal.
Big family. He's got like twins and just mayhem, but we just send each other funny memes and like cameo word up music videos out of the blue. Like, dude, the people that didn't know Thomas might not have known how funny that dude was, man. Like, we're talking gut laughter. And when it was him and Aaron Reed and Danny Hampson, and dude, you couldn't, like, your abs hurt. Like, after those photo shoots. Yeah, they were great.
Those are the best guys to be around.
Yeah.
I think we dive into a quick Patreon question here. So if you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, joining the Patreon is the best way to do so. I really appreciate everybody on that Patreon. We got one from Robert Absher here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Vintage Wakeboards, I believe is his Instagram he runs. So definitely check that out if you're interested in some older gear like we got in the studio today. But he's wondering, it's a 3-parter, and they're kind of quick. So would you rather ride shoe skis, trick skis, slalom, barefoot, or jump? That's part 1.
Oh, man, if I was 21 again, it'd be jump. It'd be freestyle jumping. Boat's going 35 miles an hour. You're doing one ski tricks. It's so gnarly. But today, barefoot. Yeah, I rip footers all the time.
Okay, love that. Is your ideal boat a 90s Nautique?
Yeah, I got a 93 Sport Nautique. It's a great boat.
And who would you rather be in the boat with more than anyone these days?
Ah, man, it's so much fun with my daughter, dude. I gotta say, she manages a band right now called Memory Well, and they're skateboarders, and they had never done anything behind a boat. And she brought them out, and we taught them how to wake skate. And BT came out and put on a demo, and dude, that was all time.
That's sick.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's a tough one.
It was cool, but I mean, I gotta say, like, if I could, like, Sean Murray, incredible guy. We used to just ride. It wasn't a photo shoot. I just go wakeboard with him. I remember one time specifically, he rode, I rode. I ended across the lake, and he's usually a busy guy, but we were across the lake. He put the boat in idle, pointed at his dock. We had a long way to go, and he just, so man, how you been, dude? You know, he like took time to like catch up with me and talk to me and blah, blah, blah. And like, he's one of those real deal guys.
He's a real one.
He's a real one. Yeah. So he's been great. Rusty, I've landed my best tricks riding with Rusty. Yeah. Merrick was in a baby bumper carriage thing, the little carrier in the boat sleeping. Rusty was driving. I landed tantrum to blind. Rusty gets out of the driver's seat and is standing on the swim platform, like cheering for me. No one's driving the boat, and Merrick's like a baby in the boat. And I landed like heel 5, switch heel 5 with Rusty. Like, he pushed me to.
There you go.
Yeah. Come on. That, you know.
Not gonna say no to that.
Infectious. Man. Yeah. He was cool.
Love it. I do want to dive back into the Wakeboarding Mag a little bit. So we kind of ran through the progression of it, and I'm curious your thoughts on, because in an outsider opinion, it seems that Wakeboarding Mag didn't transition super well into the digital age. So I'm curious your thoughts on why that is, and maybe what could have been done, if anything, to have a better transition to, the digital age.
Yeah, I think they didn't hire the right person. You know, they knew they wanted to, and they put budget behind it, but that would have taken the right human to orchestrate all that stuff. You know, in hindsight, it's really easy to pick that apart, but dude, their go-to was print. They're selling ink, dude. And, I could see them being, if they just picked up a Barstool model of, a meme page or whatever, like stuff you're doing. What could happen is, because they have the audience and they have all the archives.
Yeah.
Their Instagram right now could be all these back issues. You got content for days and days and years. Yeah, it's still great. People still like it. I can't pinpoint how it was fumbled, and I probably didn't have the business sense that I do now at that time to really identify what it was. And wakeboarding, wasn't producing the numbers that it was once wake surfing came out and, stole a lot of that thunder.
Yeah.
So how much, did people want to be like wake surfing mag editors? There weren't a lot of people that were that into that, at least around Orlando. I don't know. I wasn't around for most of that. I kind of dipped at the perfect time. I got to broker the Transworld deal. And
so I have a question on wake surfing, but I want to hear about the Transworld deal, because what is that? Because Wakeboarding Mag became Transworld Wakeboarding, right? And then went back to Wakeboarding Mag. So like what happened?
Yeah. So, Transworld, there's Transworld Surf, Skate, Snow, Ride BMX, and Motocross. And I really respected the Surf magazine. They were hilarious. Chris Cote, Aaron Checkwood, and all these guys they were like who I looked up to. They, they ran a cover with Kelly Slater and Andy Irons, split cover. We kind of did something similar with Bob and Phil Sovin. It was in the heat of the battle with Andy Irons and Kelly Slater, and they sent them, those guys did not get along, and they sent them on a free surfing trip. I think it was Tabarua, and they sent Sal Masakela to write the article, and they made a video and did a photo shoot. And I was like, this is journalism, dude. So it was just whispers around the building that, like, hey, we're talking to Transworld. But it was when Bonnier had some money and was making some acquisitions. And I was like, let's do this. And they kept me out of it for a while, but we had an editorial summit with these guys, and I ended up inviting them out on the boat, and I picked Rusty to come be the rider because I knew he was going to show up on time. And true Rusty fashion, he texted me 5 minutes before he was supposed to be there and said he had to cancel. He's not going to make it. And then he's just like standing there on the dock when I pull up. Like,
thanks for the mini heart attack.
He's like always there early, like waiting on you for a photo shoot and stuff. He's got the boat gas, the boat's running. Like, he's like the one that you would pick if you need like 100%.
Dependable, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris Cote, Annie Fast, Rob was the editorial director, Skin Phillips, a bunch of just, this is the whole Transworld crew.
Yeah.
And I took them out on the boat, and they're leisure professionals. They're lifestyle and leisure professionals, these guys. It was the SoCal culture, and they all either wake surfed or wakeboarded, and then Rusty went last. And then all of a sudden, like, they all had to catch their flight. And then I went wakeboarding just on my own with Ryan Wolf and Aaron Caton. That's where I kept that boat that we had from Nautique at the time. And they're like, what was all that? Like, those are the Transworld editors? And it was under wraps. But they're like, are you going to start working with them? I'm like, maybe. And like, the rope came tight, and I went wakeboarding, and I knew in my head, I was like, I just sealed the deal. Like, they think this shit's cool.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, what's their perception of it? I mean,
Chris Cote told them to do it. That was a big endorsement because they're not going to do anything that's kooky.
Yeah.
And wakeboarding, we worked so hard, Hunter, like too hard. We cared too much about becoming the 4th board sport. And there were times when it was published, I think Transworld Business said, and they showed the numbers, there were metrics behind it, that wakeboarding was the 4th board sport. So it was skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, wakeboarding. And those would get, published and sent around. And those were the days where it was, we made it, and then people recognizing what wakeboards were in the airport and stuff like that. I vividly remember those times where wakeboarding was truly legitimized. X Games were another example, things like that. Oakley sponsorships, Amber Wing talked a lot about that, but the deal wasn't sealed that day. But I don't know. I went wakeboarding after that just to kind of let off steam, and I came back in the boat, and I just knew it was going to happen. And sure enough, dude, Wake Awards happens that year, and we're Transworld Wakeboarding, bro. Like, I don't know if you said you were born in 95. I don't know if you remember like the Transworld lore and like how big of a deal that was.
Yes.
Skateboarding, Transworld skateboarding was 400 pages. 400
Yeah,
pages,
I had mags
bro.
as a kid, Transworld snowboarding. It was,
Like they were doing videos and stuff. So like, and the Alliance thing was like, we definitely pulled one on Alliance there because that would have been a natural SoCal thing. So I knew Alliance was like, oh, damn. Like when we became Transworld Wakeboarding, that was hot shit.
Yeah.
But we showed up at the Wake Awards that year, dude. People like Ruck and a bunch of riders were wearing the hats. I was on Fuel TV with Jeff Barton. I had a custom like Transworld logo wakeboarding shirt. We had a brand new issue that released at Wake Awards. No one had seen the issue. And also when we come out, it's the Transworld Wake Awards. And we released the premiere issue. Jimmy Lurich was on the cover. Great photo in Miami, skyline on the background. And we released the first issue of Transworld Wakeboarding at the end of the Wake Awards. And yeah, if there's a way to describe like the zeitgeist, the spirit, the kind of defining spirit or mood, it was just electric hype.
Yeah.
The Wake Award, I mean, yeah, we could talk about Wake Awards.
I want to talk about
if you
wakeboards
wanna,
because that's just a great transition.
that was one of those moments, man.
Yeah.
It was like probably the crowning achievement was getting that respect out of the, biggest media entity in board sports.
For sure. Yeah. And I'm there's a lot to unpack there too, because I'm very curious now. So you were talking about wakeboarding being the 4th major board sport and how you maybe, not you, but wakeboarding maybe tried too hard to either stay. I mean, there's not a 5th or 6th board sport, right? Like what is on the heels of wakeboarding at that point? Nothing. Like, there's not another board sport, nipping at the heels of wakeboarding, is there?
Trying to think.
Rip sticking?
I was all behind wake skating. I thought it was going to be its own whole thing that would be bigger than wakeboarding.
Seems a lot of people were.
But yeah, there's like razor scooters and stuff were coming out. I mean, there's other stuff. There's other fringe activities. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I guess what do you mean by some people tried too hard? Because I've talked to you about, how wakeboarding was represented, and a lot of people wanted Randall Harris as, more of like this is wakeboarding. Explain that, I guess, a little bit of how.
Well, we tried way too hard because we cared about what was cool in the core board sports ethos. And remember we were talking about the ugly reality? It's weekend wallies on the lake, like on tubes and towables, and just try a wakeboard, just another toy for the boat. That's the mass of it. SoCal is so ingrained in surfing, skate, and snow. There's not a lot of lakes out there. So while we won over like some approval from the culture, it wasn't like there's this huge spike in participation because of that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that answers everything, but
I want to talk about Randall Harris because, I mean.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot there. And I'll start by saying I could tell you that he's my favorite rider of all time. I could easily say that.
Yeah.
I think you've probably said.
I think boat rider,
things like that.
Yeah, he's.
So he was edgy, maybe over that line a lot of times, and he'd go on hiatuses. He had an unpredictability to him that was tough. He wrote me a letter one time, letter to the editor, went off on wakeboarding. Like all these MFers in Orlando just adding 180s. Your awards, they're not accolades, they're waccolades. And
that's kind of a good one, to be honest.
He wrote this. Yeah, no, it was compelling. Yeah. And I read it and it was like, should we publish this? It's all swears and like really edgy stuff. And then he ended up coming to town and we like hashed it out, and it was like handshake. Cause he would go through whatever, in his personal life, and then it'd come out as venting on wakeboarding. But I think he was just trying to find his way, and he loved wakeboarding. He'd just take breaks and come back. I just couldn't believe the physical, what he could put his body through.
Yeah.
Landing blind out in the flats and incredible athlete. And him and I became really good friends too. He's someone I genuinely care about, like his well-being and and there's a lot of, probably 100 riders I could say that about or more. But we were in the boat one time, and it was after a photo shoot in Arizona, and he was just coming back from a hiatus, just kind of easing into things, and we were all going to ride. And someone said, what are we doing out here? What's the point? Or we're like, I don't know, someone said something weird, like, are we shooting? Or are we just riding? I was like, hey guys, most fun wins. Like whoever has the most fun, wins. They're like, they alluded to a competition or something. I was like, no, dude, most fun wins. And Randall's chilling in the boat. He's like, yeah, I like that, Kevco. Most fun wins. And so him and I had this mutual respect. And I always probably encouraged him to just have fun,
Be yourself. Yeah. Because that's the best.
Yeah. But I heard he's doing really well. Stephen Hahn stays in touch with him, and he's doing great.
Yeah, I was talking to Trevor. He says, he's doing great, which is sick.
Yeah.
He might not ever wakeboard again, Trevor said, but that's okay.
That's okay.
He's done a lot.
Because he probably doesn't know 10 to 9 to 8. He can't dial.
No, that's what Trevor was saying. He's like, dude, he doesn't go wake to wake. He doesn't get that. Yeah. So that's love that. I mean, it's a good one.
Gotta tell this one. We had a party. He was 14, no parents. Him and Parks were super young, maybe 15. And I was having a party at Marine World in Vallejo, California. The pro tour would come through our ski show site at the park, and the pro wakeboard tour came through. Parks and Randall were on their own. No parents. I'm probably 19, so I'm still underage. Doing upside down margaritas. So everyone would take turns, and you sit in a lazy boy, and two people would drop you back. And I had the tequila and the margarita mix. And we had pour spouts, and it was Randall's turn. big party, music, fun summer. And they tip Randall back. I put my thumb on the tequila, and he gets all margarita mix. Bro, stands up in the chair, like, raise him out of the chair, spits the margarita mix all over. He's like, what the F? This party's freaking bunk. You guys suck. I'm effing out of here. Like, told everyone off at the party and, like, gets the hell out. He was so pissed I didn't give him tequila. And, like, while it was really, like, rude and all that stuff, I was thinking, I kind of like this dude.
I kind of,
like, even though he
knows you're pulling one over.
He was,
on him,
like,
dude.
yelling at me at my party, in my house. And I was like, there's something cool about this guy. Like,
at 14 years old, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk Wake Awards, because you kind of spearheaded Wake Awards. Am I correct in saying that?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I was co-founder. Jim Emmons handled some of the business side, but I handled all the content and the structure of the awards and everything. The whole show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I guess when I'm looking at the magazines throughout the years, Alliance has always had Rider of the Year, and I think that's like it's one thing they do where it's like a award content around, and it's very cool, gets everyone's attention. And then on the other side of that, I think Wake Awards was its own different thing. And I'm using was because it really isn't anything anymore. Maybe it will be soon, but I guess was that part of a goal of like, okay, Alliance is Rider of the Year, maybe we can do something else, or like what was the idea behind wanting to do Wake Awards?
I don't remember when Alliance started Rider of the Year, but I don't think it was a thing in 03. Maybe it was, but I don't remember that having an influence on what we were doing. There was the Byerly Toe Jam, Parks Boniface, Double or Nothing, and the Wake Awards all started at the same time. I believe it was 03. So it had been something that had been batted around by some dealers who had contacted. Everyone knew it was kind of something that made sense. It was on the table, but Wakeboarding Magazine wasn't known for spending money in those ways. And Wake Awards never really made money. It was kind of a break-in deal, but it was a very expensive break-even deal. So I just took an interest in that because I had a grip on media, and I thought we always had end-of-the-year water ski banquets on the ski teams I was on, and I'd make a banquet video for that. And it was like, it's just the way to end the season, man. And Surf Expo was the shiz, dude. Like, Surf Expo was the jam. Everyone was there, and we had an opportunity to embrace the entire crowd in one room. So there'd be over 1,000 people in the room, and Roy Turner from Surf Expo, title sponsor, they'd kick in good money for us because everything's expensive at the convention centers. And the first year, man, it was pretty raw. Like, we did not know what to expect, and those things, the unexpected kind of unscripted moments are what became my favorite of Wake Awards over the years. But yeah, the first year was pretty crazy. Yeah.
So, I mean, how did it progress, I guess? Because it's now gone, but it had moments of, I always hear, oh man, Wake Awards was like the craziest party, free beer or whatever. And it's just like, everyone's just partying, having fun. So yeah, you said it's a break even thing, but I mean, how much are we talking in terms of putting money into
50 grand it cost, and
for just the night
toward the end. Yeah. I think it was like 75 grand toward the end. But yeah, so when, we had, the first year was just mayhem. I just remember no one knew what to expect, but once that show ended, it went better than anyone had thought.
The first one?
Yeah, and Byerly was named the first legend, and if you'd have seen the people in that room when he won that award, you'd have been like, dude, okay, this is here to stay.
Approval.
Scott couldn't even talk. Too
many beers?
No, he's just
too
like,
emotional.
Yeah, he's kind of shy. Like, he'd be good on camera and interview. Like, he'd be great in here, but he's kind of little, shy in front of the crowds and stuff. So he couldn't talk on his acceptance speech, and everyone just kept yelling for him. And like, it was a big moment. But after that, I had so many people come up to me in that room and say, hey man, what do I got to do? Like, I want to be a part of this. Like, what can I do? I'll work for you. I'll be your intern.
Yeah.
I'll get coffee. What can I knew it was going to brand the magazine. We didn't make money from that, but I just knew I always had an eye for branding and stuff like that. I knew it was just branding gold. And I really liked giving the riders something to strive to be. And it was called Move of the Year at first. It evolved into Trick of the Year. And so that...
Good name change there.
Yeah, well, and that's... Tony Smith had called it Moves. Because he thought tricks sounded stupid, which kind of does, like magic tricks, like kind of sounds...
I always think that trick is a weird word, but it's so ingrained in all these sports.
And we had an issue called 50 Moves by 50 Riders. That was one of the best-selling issues of Wakeboarding Magazine ever. Sean Murray's cover shot eclipsed that. The one where he's the hard lean mirror shot. Yeah,
it's one of the most famous.
Yeah, that's the best-selling cover of all time. But 50 Moves by 50 Riders was huge. And Tony said, let's call them Moves. And it worked a lot, but Move of the Year was kind of clunky. And people just still call it Trick of the Year anyway. But that first year, it didn't exist before that. And I just thought, I don't know, just pulled it out of the air. I didn't see it I'm sure other sports were doing it, but I just thought it was something we needed. And Todd Hicks from Fox, I asked him for some money last minute. And he's like, oh, man, I don't know, but I'll go to the hoop for you on this one. And he did. And he came up with a couple grand or something. And I think Sean Murray was the first winner of, Trick of the Year with something big at Radar. It's like a switch 270 on to this huge rail at Radar.
One of those early 2000s units, yeah.
And it was switch, and on the forums, one of those 2000 mega rails. But like big, you know. And Murray was getting criticized on the forums for not doing anything switch. So he ended his acceptance speech with, and switch. So then Hunter, it was nuts. Everyone would come up, be landing tricks on the down low and coming to me on the down low with the footage every year. Yeah. It was getting almost bigger than like winning worlds or something like that. Riders would focus on winning Trick of the Year.
I think that in other sports it is bigger than all these other. I mean, I think of Trick of the Year in skating. Like, think about the energy and the attention that people give to that. It's like much deserved. So, like, you're doing the coolest thing that's been done in the sport that year.
Yeah,
that's freaking cool. Like, so I guess explain the importance of wakeboards for the culture, because to me it seems like whatever it is, whether it's Wake Awards or some award show at the end of a season, to, like you were saying, reward the riders, give attention back to the people who are the heartbeat of the sport, the riders. So how important was it for the culture, and do you think now there's a big kind of gap in wakeboarding without, the attention on the award show?
Well, I mean, it'd be lying if I didn't admit that it's nice to see like people like yourself bringing it up now that it's gone and talking about it, because there is a lull now and it is missing. By design, I would have multiple presenters for each award. So it'd be a minimum of 2 people, because my idea was to get as many people on the stage as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you're a wakeboarder, semi-pro, pro, and you don't get on stage, that's a way different night than someone who actually got on stage and talked on the microphone. True. So I thought the more people we can get on stage.
It also looks cool. It looks good.
Sure. Yeah. But it gave, Danny Harf always put it eloquently as, you got to give younger riders something to aspire to be. So if there's a younger rider in the room that night and looks up to something, Parks was like super successful at the early Wake Awards. I think he had 3 Tiki trophies just from that first year. And so it started to take on its own identity though. And Danny Harf was a big part of that. He called me on the down low when he landed. Parks landed the first 1080 in 1999, switched toe side. And then Danny was the one to land the next 1080 7 years later. So it was until 2006 that the next 1080 was landed. And Danny's was switch heel side. Pointless crew was in the boat. They're all jumping out of the boat and stuff. That's what started the jumping out of the boat thing. And
bring that back. I think that might be, La Familia might do that every now and again.
Yeah,
bring that back.
I'm not at WSI anymore. Like safety, whatever.
Just be safe, but still.
Yeah. So Danny calls me up 2 days before Wake Awards. Hey Kev, just landed a 1080. And so I was like, no way. He's like, I was thinking we'd save it, hold it back, and show it at Wake Awards. What do you think? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what I think? Like, this is the greatest thing to ever happen to wakeboarding, potentially. and we get to show it at Wake Awards. And so no one knew. They kept it under wraps. And we showed the whole trick of the year, all the nominees, which was great to have a reel that was just all the best tricks. And that's why you'll throw in some tricks, even if they're not going to win, just to, again, like share the love, deserves the love. Like this. And then, so we showed the whole thing. And then I think JB was announcing and said, okay, like, what'd you guys think? Rah. And like, well, we just had one more submission. And we showed Danny trying 10A. I think he fell once, fell twice, and then lands it. And then we had a limited edition cover of Danny for that event only. So we had like maybe 1,000 copies only, limited edition Wake Awards. And so Danny won trick of the year for 1080. Curse was broken, and Pointless is carrying them on stage on their shoulders. And then we released the magazine simultaneously. Yeah. And people are I just remember I'd sit in the back of the room, like at the audio table. I just remember seeing magazines flying through the air. We literally blew the roof off that building that night. And Danny's just straight D block, like the best representation of what you'd want a wakeboarder to be. He gave all these other kids the blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the best. And then 2 years later, hey, Kev, I just landed a 1260. 2 years later, it's like, should we save it for Wake Awards? I'm like, sure, dude. There's D-Block doing it again.
Run this one back.
Like, same thing. Blew the roof off that place. Cause that was a 12, man. That was the first time.
NBD, man.
You know, I think they should be called 3.5, 4, 4.5. What do you think about that?
No. What are you talking about?
Like, no one knows what you're talking about once you get past 720 or 1080.
That's your inner water skier coming out right there.
I get it. Well, no, what about the mainstream that doesn't know anything about anything?
I don't think they understand either of those.
1440? Doesn't it just sound kind of whack?
I think it sounds cooler than 4.
You think?
Yeah. I think
4
so.
4.5?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't really thought about it that much, though.
It just sounds wild when you get into.
I've always been a proponent of the helicopter, the single helicopter, the double heli, the triple heli.
Okay.
And Tony Iacone's a big one.
So maybe you got an inner water skier a little bit.
Don't you say that here in this studio booth.
That was cool. You had Joel Pollan on.
Dude, he's that kid. That guy's the king. Love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a.
You're getting more water sports rounded. I know there's some other skiers that were.
Freddie Winter, I've been kind of poking at him a little bit.
Okay.
He seems like being,
I heard he was like wanted to be the first skier.
Oh, he did.
There, so
well,
yeah.
Joel Pollan brought me a 6-pack, beer belt. So that's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Freddie's gonna bring, but maybe a full 6-pack beer belt of beer would be sweet. But
those guys are cool.
Yeah, they're sick. Yeah, Joel Pollan's the man. And we can dive into water skiing a little bit here because you got a new position that you mentioned earlier. But before that, you did mention you did some judging early on to kind of supplement the income. But then, I would imagine later you probably didn't need it as you did it later on the tour and stuff. But talk about a situation where you were judging and JD Webb maybe, I don't know if controversial is the right way to put it, but a situation that wasn't
really. We got to.
Well, we're going.
We're going. Yeah,
we're
doing the highs and the lows and the tears and the fears. Yeah, no, I still needed to judge. I never made good money at the magazine. I didn't make good money till I was in my 40s. So anyone out there who's like in their 20s and 30s and that, people don't take you seriously until you're 38 or so. So your earnings years start in your 40s.
That's what they say early on.
It's real. It's real. And judging, for the most part, was really awesome. I loved it. I love being in tune with the riders and following a rider's progress over the entire season. I love the parties. I loved the lifestyle. I love the tour. I love Chris Bischoff, Sean Dishman, everyone that organized it. Man, it was a grind. It was such a grind. Hot days in the boat all day long. There were a lot of parts of it that were really hard. So it was all the things at once. You loved it. You hated it. Danny Harf, again, said, he told Rodrigo one time, we were all kind of burning out, and Danny goes, you just got to love it, because otherwise you're going to hate it. And we were like, duh.
How profound.
It was just like easier to love it. But there are moments when all of us wanted to throw in the towel. Drew McGuckin, you brought up Drew.
Yeah.
He was so over it. At one point, we're in Ackworth, and Drew had been doing it for probably 10, 12 years. He was so bitter at people protesting there were points where it got a little out of control and they'd have to make rules that they couldn't just come up to a judge and protest. You'd have to go through this process. But before all that, we turned in scores and Drew was over it. He was just like already over it. And we hear on the radio, hey, you judges cool with those scores? The first question would be like, you guys solid on those scores from round 2 or heat 2 or whatever?
You know what's coming after.
And Drew's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, so-and-so has a question about so-and-so. And Drew's like, screw it. Throws his clipboard, gets out of the boat, walks to his rental car, and leaves the site. Doesn't say what he just done. He quit, and that was it. Mid-event. He
had enough, dude. I'm done.
Dude, we were all like blown away. I think he came back, though. I don't know. He said he missed it down the line. He said he did miss it.
Situation.
Yeah. But it was tense, and some of the parents were really bad.
Yeah, well, because you mentioned the self-appointed shoreline judging committee is what you
self-appointed shoreline judging.
So I run through, I guess, what that is. I mean, you kind of talked about the parents that come up, but like, was it? Yeah. It was pretty bad at times.
JD story. So
yeah, Good
so I call them the self-appointed shoreline judging crew, and there's this thing that happens when a rider performs just okay. Like, let's say it's a bubble position, or they're trying, or it used to be head to head, and a rider comes in and their friends and their peers want to say something supportive no matter what. Most people on shore don't watch every trick. They don't. You're in conversation, a lot of people ADD,
drinking a beer, hanging out,
and you're far away, bro. And they used to have us far away in deer stands so that we couldn't talk amongst each other. But it's way better to talk. You don't have to influence the scores. But, hey, how was that grab on this? How was the grab on that? What was that? Oh, no, that was switch. Those clerical reasons, it's better to have the judges together.
Yeah.
But where are we at? Before JD?
Shoreline judging committee.
Oh, yeah. So a rider will come in and kind of be wondering how they did. And it's human nature. People say, oh, you killed it. I think you got that. You got that for sure. You got that. People will be like, you got that. You beat them. Yeah, you'll make finals. Like, you got that. It's just human nature. But please, people at events, stop doing that to riders, because I can't tell you how many times a rider's protested and we explain why, and they'll say, everybody on shore disagrees. Like, everybody says. And that really, like, makes a rider feel like they should. It really makes them feel like they should get through. So if you weren't writing down scores or like tricks with plus minus and notations, I don't want to freaking hear from you. Okay. Like, if you can't tell me every single trick that a whole heat, sometimes the heats were 8 riders, bro. Yeah. I want to see plus minuses, hand drags, there's all kinds of things we'd look at. And I've done it where you would just walk up to events and just watch. You don't remember every trick and every execution mark and everything of a heat. So some of the pros would get really good. Phil Sovin was probably the best at analyzing just with his eyes and remembering everything. That's why he did so well. But yeah, don't tell a rider, yeah, you got it, you got this, you beat him. Don't do that.
When someone's trying a trick, yes, throw out the "you got this."
Yeah.
When they finish their pass, and
it's disrespectful to the judges.
Yeah.
To like make a call from the shoreline, and dude, you can't see what the judges are seeing in the boat.
Yeah.
Rope lengths, all that type of stuff's a factor too. But yeah, there are some tough moments, man. There are some tough moments. JD's was the worst.
Yeah, run through the JD.
Probably because he was one of my good homies, and I love that dude. Watched him grow up through the ground ranks. And he was driving the day before, and there's a tough call. There's what's called a 3/4 buoy. So basically, it's at the end of your second pass. If you fall past that buoy, your run's done. So you don't want to put the boat driver in a position where the boat driver is going to run into shore so you can get one more trick in. So you're basically the 3/4 buoy saying, you don't have enough time to get another trick in. Your run's over. But that buoy's kind of arbitrary, like negotiable, because that buoy would move a little, and I don't know, things would change, and they'd usually give that one to the rider. And JD was driving the day before, and we kind of gave it to the rider. I think it was Rappa. And then I didn't have anything to do with it, because you can't tell from the boat. There'd be someone on shore. Usually Bish would be on shore. You can't tell from the boat if they fell past the buoy, or it's hard to gauge. So on shore was better. So I just kept my mouth shut on that one. And in general, I will say that the tour, would generally conclude with whatever's best for the riders. It's definitely we're for the rider instead of against the rider if there was a tough call. But if you know Travis Moy, which I'm sure you do, I think you talked to him for 3 hours.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, got pretty emotional.
Oh,
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah.
Passionate.
Yeah, it was great. He's great. So Timo, we spent a lot of time together, and one thing he didn't like was being, like driven into shore. Because if a rider's cutting in too late, he's not going to chop the throttle or turn on them because he doesn't want them to get hurt.
Yeah.
And it was our job to call whether a rider, there was an end buoy, basically end buoy, gates, whatever you want to call them, that if you cut past, the trick doesn't count because you're running the boat into shore. And Timo get pissed. So the next day I see JD, and he's still with Nautique, and he's still right on that elite level, and he's been around forever, and I see a lot of athletes get to that stage in their career where maybe it's not as fun, on tour, and like they just want to qualify for Worlds. They just want to win. They want to keep their sponsors. Things aren't as fun as they used to be. You get this whole cocktail of like things going on, and he cut in after the buoy, and I went like this, and he landed the trick and would have got through with that trick and didn't get through, and didn't make the finals, so wasn't going to qualify for something after that or something like that.
Implications were involved, yeah.
And there was a break, and I'm standing on the dock, and he comes in, and it's pretty heated. And it's not that crazy of a story, like honestly, but the way it affected me was, because here's like one of the dudes I respect the most in this thing. He's done so much for wakeboarding. He personified like what it is to be a wakeboarder, and he was like that post Pointless wave of younger talent, and just the coolest dude ever. Like, love hanging out with him. Miss that guy. But he kind of, went off about it on the dock to me. Nothing disrespectful. We're just like, come on, man. Like, you gave it to him the day before. And what, it's all like coming into play, like the day before thing. And I was like, bro, I didn't have anything to do with the day before. Like, and we just kind of got into it a little bit. And that did it for me, man. I was like, I went to my rental car and like had to sit. I sat in there for a half hour alone and just
decompress.
I was gonna pull him a guckin', dude.
Like, I'm out.
Like I did. I started it. I had it running, and I was like, I can't judge anymore. Like I can't do this.
Yeah.
Let Bish like talk me back into it, and then because then the riders going and telling everyone their side of the story. You get the riders, and this isn't necessarily with that JD deal, but the riders would go off about this or that, and you wouldn't get your chance to tell your side of the story.
Well, it's the referee situation. Right?
That's how that's how the whole community of wakeboarding thinks that the tour sucks. Yeah. Because they hear like the rider side of the story, which isn't always the whole story from like.
There's always three sides.
Yeah.
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 So that's a classic.
But I will say, like,
too.
It was a totally legit crew. Wolf, Drew, Grubb. Grubb was our chief judge, dude. Like, he's super intelligent, and we all cared. And there's no nonsense going on ever. I never saw any nonsense. And, we were there to grow the sport and make it legitimate. And it was. But, yeah, the job sucks. It can suck.
It's a thankless job, too. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's classic after a contest, the only person that's going to hang around and, like, hang out with the judges is the dude who won. Everybody else is pissing off. Like, I'm not, screw these guys. Like,
yeah.
So.
But, yeah, I got called out a lot for, like, having friends, like, oh, they're just his friends.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that and counter that when someone's
you try to spend time with everybody.
Yeah.
I had a list of people that I like never got to ride with, but I always would try to go ride with everybody around Orlando. And there's people I didn't, and it bothered me. But I tried to do my best and hanging out with everybody. And you have people that you become better friends with, and you're going to weddings and birthdays and. Like, it's true.
Natural human.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Stuff like that. And then there's perceptual bias, which it's not bias, but, now Kevco, like I was working for Body Glove in Malibu and doing Red Bull stuff. So if any of those riders made it through a bubble, whoa. It's just a perceptual bias, not actual bias, but that exists. Like, so you got to deal with all those things, and there's no right answer. It just, you got to suck it up.
It's never perfect. It's never will be perfect.
No.
And that's just
and wakeboarding, I tell people by nature, I don't believe it's a competitive sport. This could be like a something to ponder.
Yeah.
Because in the real world, it's not a competition. Like motocross racing, that's a competition. It's built on, racing. Take like track and field. It's a competition. There's sports that are based on competition.
Objective winners.
Wakeboarding was not founded or based on competition.
Yeah.
Free riding in that sense is awesome. That's the best. And that's how I approached the sport, was free riding. I didn't care to compete. It was fun because it gave me a goal to, get your ass on the water. But I never really saw it as like truly, truly a competitive sport.
I mean, that's with all the sports, right? That are snowboarding, skateboarding, wakeboarding, surfing. Like all these things there is no time that my time is faster than your time, therefore I win. I threw the ball further than you, therefore I beat you. It's, well, we are creating a rough outline of how hard these tricks are and what looks good, what doesn't look good, and judging based on what we think, but there is no book that is exactly like trick skiing point-wise, where it's like, that's worth this many points. If you get this many points, you win. So
yeah, and the score was subjective.
Yeah.
And that's how they wanted it. That's how the WWA designed it. But you had to have the right judges.
Well, it's all about the judges at that point. Like, and the riders have to then respect what the judges think, and it's a whole debacle. But
will always be.
But competition also helps legitimize things, right?
Sure.
So like you see snowboarding, skating in the Olympics. It's like these sports are now more legitimate because they have this contest on the biggest stage in the world. So speaking of Olympics, you think wakeboarding or water sports will ever be in the Olympics?
So cable, water skiing, probably not. The engine is a big deal. It's a gas-powered engine.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other gasoline-powered sports. It's not like NASCAR.
No motorized or anything.
Yeah, there's no motor.
Like that.
But
right.
cable wakeboarding in 2016 had a really good chance.
Did it?
Mm-hmm. It was close. It was close. And I think it could be again. So we're looking into that through USA Wakeboard. Obviously, that would be huge for everything. There's a lot of effects when other countries, identify it as an Olympic sport, and then they're training, you see like 10-year-olds doing tray flips or whatever and skateboarding. Like that phenomenon's been pretty crazy.
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think some of the skaters maybe wish it wasn't in the Olympics, but
it's such a weird thing to me. I don't fully understand. You don't own the sport of skateboarding, and also skateboarding owes you nothing. So if you like it, go skateboard on your own. Don't be mad that it's in the Olympics.
And you still have your own channels to promote.
Yeah,
you
still have your own shit going on. So that kind of pisses me off a little bit. I understood like back when snowboarding was in the Olympics, it's this huge thing, like all this stuff, and it's like I do get the cultural side of it all, but like you don't own it. It's not yours.
Yeah, good call.
It's not yours to say. But so wakeboarding though, do you think that's if we're looking at all the water sports as a whole, wakeboarding cable wise is the one that would be
best chance.
I would agree. And
best chance.
Are you thinking like a 2-tower system would be how that would happen, or what are you thinking?
I think it was right off the era of the Red Bull Wake Labs.
Yep.
And all those things that were happening. So a lot of those were System 2.
Yeah.
I think for a crowd. Oh, and that Feast event was
Sick,
hot
yeah.
and all that stuff. So I wouldn't count that out. So I don't have any specific knowledge.
Sure.
I should. And I need to look into that more. But we're on the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And then there's the IOC, which is International Olympic Committee. And they're the ones that dictate what the sports are going to be at the games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it were me, I would love to see a 2-tower system. I think that's the way that wakeboarding is best represented, as crowd-wise and easy to digest-wise, and the setups can be really cool. So, but yeah, it makes sense that would have the most legs when it comes to potential to have, in the game. So, would be cool one day. Let's talk WSIA. So we can touch on this kind of quickly here, but this was after Wakeboarding Magazine, your career. You went to WSIA. For those who don't know what the WSIA is, maybe a brief explanation, what it is, what their goal is, what their purpose is, I guess, and then kind of why you started working there and then maybe stopped.
Yeah, sure. It started in the 80s with guys like Herb O'Brien and Rob Shirley. It was like HO, Masscraft, Nautique. They all got together, the Maloons, and they would just meet once a year casually, and it turned into an industry association. Every industry has a trade association. So when I came on board, it was still kind of had a stigma as the good old boys club. Behind closed doors, no one really knew. So being the promoter, media guy, Larry Maddock brought me in. He's a legend. He was at Nautique for 27 years, icon in the industry. Great guy. And he molded me as communications director, assistant director, and then I became executive director. And we honed in on the mission to promote and protect. So we added this whole promotional wheel to, everything towed behind a boat. So it's the Watersports Industry Association, and we have an annual summit. So there were, pillars of activity, and we started to, it's another nonprofit. So all the money that comes in goes back to supporting the sport. But you'd like this. One of their early achievements was making the hole patterns universal. So you could take one boot off a liquid force board and put it on a hyperlight. That was because WSIA. And that you'll actually be in a room with fierce competitors and then see them getting along. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, that's just that should have never not been a thing. So that, thank you. That should
that was before my time. But yeah, we had a lot of success. We went from 250 members to 416 members or something like that. Huge growth. All the cable parks, all the dealers. So any business now is part of WSIA, and we have an annual summit. And if they have any problems, there's committees. There's a wake park committee. There's a dealer committee, and camps and schools, and equipment, and tow boats, and stuff like that. So, yep, that's WSIA. Had a good run. I was there 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, but that was my first real deal job. Like that's when all those DC trips, and I was starting to wear suits more often.
Yeah, you look pretty corporate. I'll throw a picture in there. Corporate Kev, standing up there talking to people and stuff. So, before we get into USA Waterski and your current position, I got some stuff we can run through as quickly or as, you can dive in as much as you want, I guess. But when it came to Red Bull Wake Lab, was there a unique, I guess, situation where you got your DNA pulled and then they did I guess artwork is the way to put it. I guess run through that story because that's a cool story.
I mean, there was a stretch, Hunter, like 5 years where Red Bull was doing crazy stuff all the time, and we were like so used to it, almost spoiled by them. And looking back, it was just wild. So just one example of something they did was we got this ambiguous, mysterious invite. Didn't know who it was from. Show up at this parking garage, downtown Orlando, no idea what it was, but it looked professional enough that, we went. And it was just media people that were invited and maybe some event organizers or something. And we all showed up. Like, oh, dude, you're here too? What is this? I don't know why I'm here. So we're all standing there. White van rolls up with 4 models in lab coats. And they get out and swab our cheeks with a Q-tip. Super weird, right? And like they peace out. And that was it.
No explanation, no word spoken, just
nope. So 2 weeks later, Red Bull Wake Lab goes down on Lake Eola, downtown Orlando. Huge crowd. I think there's 20,000 or something at that one. And it was a scene, dude. They had System 2 and the full Wake Lab set up. The big wall ride and some other features were there. And that was a moment. That was big. So event wraps up, time for awards, and they hand out these presents to the media and probably judges and anyone who's had a major position. And it was artwork of your DNA, the coding as artwork in a Red Bull frame that y'all, got as a gift, a parting gift. That was just an example of like
those
crazy,
little things,
creative stuff.
Kind of bigger, but yeah, I always thought that stuff was really unique and cool when you're, I don't know, just seeing mags and stuff of like these weird, for no reason. There's no reason to do that, right? Other than it's just fucking cool. Like, it's just cool. Yeah,
and word of mouth was still before social media was really what it is now. So word of mouth was still. Nike would send really cool gifts. Dude, I didn't buy clothes or shoes for a long time, probably 20 years. And then Fox came out with dress clothes. So you're like, oh, sweet.
You're covered. Every event, dude. We're good.
Yeah.
Speaking of events, so you're talking about Red Bull Wake Lab, which I think is, that and Wake the Line, I think are two of the, we could go on about events, but two of really cool events that I think have kind of changed the path of wakeboarding. And I'm wondering what event or event series do you think has changed, the path of wakeboarding or the perception or the progression of wakeboarding the most? And it could be Wake Lab, but I don't know.
Event series?
Event or event series, just one thing that, looking back, really changed maybe the history or the path of where wakeboarding was going?
I mean, I'm so old school on the toe jam and double or nothing. Wake Lab, we mentioned that. I think the video contests were big. Seeing the effort that those guys put into the real wake, X Games, I mean, that was the prime focus of their season. I think that probably changed up a lot on the video side for those guys as far as how much they take it seriously. You'd know more about the cable side and like how it impacted things than I would. But I mean, dude, yeah, we mentioned Boardstock too. I mean, that was
it could be
anything that
like
can incorporate the lifestyle is what draws in
and getting masses of people.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more events like the one in Tennessee. So
yeah,
who knows? Maybe things will be coming back.
Yeah, if you haven't been to Wakefest, put that on your bucket list for sure.
It's on there. It's up there.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you think has been the most influential wakeboarder ever, besides Parks, Byron, or Raff?
What? Oh, damn it!
I'm not going to let you off any easy on that one. I mean, come on.
Most influential?
Yeah,
Danny Harf.
it's a good one.
Are we talking boat, cable, whatever?
Just
Raff was kind of both. Parks, Murray.
I was gonna say Murray for me.
Yeah,
he's kind of had the video game. That's a big thing there.
Yep. Yeah,
and his
if
career,
you say
obviously.
influential,
Yeah,
I mean he has the fans and they love him and they wakeboard because of him.
Yeah,
that's influence.
True.
Yeah,
that's to a T influence. How much do you think?
But Dallas, like,
yeah,
she's. If you had to make me pick one goat, it'd probably be her.
Across the board, just anyone?
No, female goat.
Okay.
Yeah, she's. Yeah. Oh, I mean, there were years where
she was bigger than
the guys,
which is so cool.
And I was there, like I documented all that.
Yeah.
And I rode with her. We'd free ride together. I'm talking 3 sets each. You know those days where you just loved it, like just kept wakeboarding until you couldn't.
Your arms fall off.
Yeah, she was cool. She was super cool to ride with. A lot of people didn't get that experience. Like, see how like chill and cool and like easygoing she is and fun. Like she's funny. Inside jokes for days. And yeah, she's great.
I mean, there's a handful of people that, if you ever got to ride with them, that's kind of like a cherished moment, which is Randall's up there. Dallas is up there. Parks has got like a lot of big names, obviously, but just Raff would be a cool
That was my favorite part of this whole career.
Shredding with him.
Yeah, anyone. All those, bunch of people.
As it should be. That's sweet. Who do you think, how much do you think the top rider made in a year ever?
Probably $750.
$750,000? You don't think anybody topped $1 million
Topped
in a year?
$1 million?
In a year?
I don't know.
I mean, nobody knows, I guess, besides those who were cashing the checks and writing them, but probably had a good idea.
Just wakeboarding alone, not their real estate, probably $750.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
It's big years back in the day.
Yeah. I'd like to see someone come forward confidentially and tell you they made over $1 million on Wake.
Well, maybe I'll have Parks on one day and we can hash that
the
out.
Nitty gritty.
I feel like he might be willing.
There could have been a Dan Harf year when
could have been a Murray year too.
Yeah, well, when Monster was thrown down for Boardstock, there's some big purses.
That there were.
So it would have taken prize money and endorsements and win incentives.
Yeah,
it's possible.
You think it's possible? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, curious on that one. I
love how curious you are.
How can you not be, man? I mean, come on.
It's great. You're a good journalist. You're good. You asked the good questions.
Big
and
J,
you're prepared.
Big J journalist here. I got a clip.
Some of these podcasters are just like yapping and don't have a structure and see where it goes, but that's lazy.
You can't.
You're not lazy. Support this pod, man. Patreon was it $5-10 a month?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, if you're interested, I love it.
That's it. Do it. It's easy. You can cancel. You can cancel.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, so there's no risk.
There is no risk.
Like,
you
got $5 sitting around. Just do it.
That's a beer.
Yeah.
Come on. So I do appreciate everybody on the Patreon. That really is huge.
And industry support too. Liquid Force, anyone else, like get involved. I'm sure he can give you a good package and you can come up with something creative to do on the show.
Oh yeah, we'll have some fun.
Do it.
I got plenty of ideas. I'm not short on those. So speaking of wakeboarding, water skiing, obviously you have dabbled in both, throughout your whole career. But I'm curious on And this one's kind of serious, I guess. What does wakeboarding and water skiing provide that wake surfing can't?
Speed.
Amplitude.
Yeah.
For wakeboarding.
Yeah. I don't get the same buzz.
Adrenaline.
I don't get that at wake surf speed.
Yeah.
I have seen some rad stuff. You know, you watch Noah Flegel.
Sure, and I'm not dogging wake surfing at all.
Yeah.
It's do whatever you want on the water. I don't care. But, like, I'm just curious.
Well, there's something about a risk factor.
Yeah.
That's exciting. You know, I just really love surfing in the ocean. So I'd rather go drive out to Coco and surf 3-foot waves than I probably never rallied a crew like, hey, you guys want to wake surf today? Like, it never happened, you know, but it was something. I will say Parks and Ruck had a big part of the influence of the early days.
Yeah.
And we took Zap skimboards and would drill a hole. Tony Smith was around for that. Hunter Joslin, the endoboard guy, Nick and Jules Heaney. We would drill a fin into a Zap skimboard. And that was better to surf behind a boat than a traditional surfboard. And that was the genesis. That's what started wake surfing, legitimately.
I mean, I remember in the old days just seeing, I mean, you're looking at one right here like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't dialed at all back in the day. It was very much so.
It just need to be smaller so it fit in the shape of the wave.
The pocket.
Yeah.
I think the kids call it the pocket.
But we call it slation. Parks and Ruck just call it slation. And Centurion called it wake surfing. And we said, no, it's called slation.
Wake scootering.
It's just, it's something to do on the way back to the dock.
Yeah.
Is how we looked at it.
Yeah.
Like,
still is. So let's talk setup. So you mentioned you foot now, obviously. So there's really not a setup for barefooting because it's just your body. But do you wakeboard at all, water ski at all? If you do, run through the setup that you're.
Yeah, wakeboard. I like the one boots from Ronix. I've always rode Danny's boots. And but I don't know. I like to try some new boots. Rusty's pro model I always loved. So I'd always get that, and then his new boards would come out, and I still like the old boards. So I'd find them on eBay and stuff after a while. Kind of cracked out on that, but yeah, set up barefoot. I like to step off a ski, get up, do the step off. It's kind of nice. It's better than doing the deep water start and like dealing with all that. Wake skate, I got a remote. Just wear a pair of Vans. Wake skate. Try to do something different every time I'm on the water.
I was gonna say, you're just. It sounds like you're just doing it all. Like,
yeah, well, show skiing teaches you. I was in half of the acts in the show, so there were 14 acts, and I was in 7 of them. So you had to like run to the next thing.
Yeah.
So the more you could do, the better skier you were.
More time on the water you got,
and that made it fun for me. And now foiling, you know, I got to be an instructor for lift, e-foils for a minute, and their technology's great. So, but that's part of growing up in Wisconsin and show skiing is that you do it all and you love it all. And it just keeps everything so fun, you know, but yeah, got out to Nona not too long ago, but I want to get back into wakeboarding. I just kind of need a nudge from you or someone, and
there you go.
Just go out and bust
nudge you right now.
Yeah. But just go out and bust some grabs on, you know, on a mid wake.
That or the cable, dude. I feel like the cable you can go forever on the cable.
True.
Because you can just do some rails, some nice mellow rail hits, you know. So.
Yep.
But yeah, so you're still got on the water though. Is the question there? How often would you say you're
quite a bit. I moved to Winter Haven, dude, and I'm big on not selling out spots. Just so you know, I've seen some riders.
I might disagree with you on this one, but continue.
I've seen some riders call out some lakes, and I come from the surfing realm of you don't name spots, and you know. I've been on a private gem in Orlando the last 4 or 5 years. If you know, you know. Island parties, whole deal. It's super fun, but it's private. And we want to keep it kind of private-ish. And it's a gem right by downtown Orlando, but we don't want to call out the spot.
I can pull up Google Maps. I'll be able to find it real quick, I think.
That's fine. That's fine. But we don't like, you know, saying the name of some spots because it's happened. I've seen it over and over. And those lakes around Orlando, so-and-so moves there, starts posting there, and then all of a sudden it's those wake parents that come and just like run lines all day with everyone from around the neighborhood. It gets a little annoying. So anyways, Winter Haven's the opposite. I moved down there. It's sick. I'm on a chain of 13 lakes. There's bars and restaurants. And in the area alone, you look at the satellite map, it's all lakes everywhere.
Yeah.
So much rideable spots, and real estate's still pretty Yeah, it's
Not
way
too bad
cheaper
down
than
there.
Orlando. So if any wakeboarders are looking to come down and find, it's kind of like Claremont was, you know, when everyone was moving out to Claremont, but Winter Haven's just full of long, buttery lines any day of the week. Ton of water, decent real estate. I'm having a blast down there, dude.
That's the spot.
It is. And it's the water ski capital of the world. So there's still echoes of, you know, the Cypress Gardens days. And there's a ski team with over 200 members.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. That's
rad. Yeah. It's and you feel like you're in the 80s down there. It's great. Yeah.
80s
I
are
fit
a
right
good
in.
Okay, so I mean, you just kind of mentioned it, water skiing, and you're started a new position somewhat recently at what's the USA Waterski and Wake? What is it?
Yep. USA Waterski and Wake Sports.
Okay.
The founding pillar is AWSA, American Water Ski Association, which is 3 event. Slalom, trick, and jump, Joel Poland style, but only for the USA.
Okay.
And then we have 14,000 members, and our mission is to organize, develop, and promote all towed water sports. So it was crazy. They had hundreds of resumes, cut the resumes down to 50. 24 of those got the first round interview. I made it to the next round. There were 12 of us. I made it to the next round. There were 3 of us. We had to give an in-person presentation. And this is a big boy job. Like this is, most lucrative position I've had, best benefits I've ever had. I'm not doing any other side hustles anymore. And I went all in on this. And at first I was kind of thinking I could get this job, but do I really want it? And then the more I started digging into it, I need it. It's all I could think about.
Yeah.
Like when those ideas are keeping you up at night in a good way, I needed to feel that again. It had been a minute since I was so excited about something. So did the last interview in person, and I just showed a bunch of crazy stuff, dude. I showed grub going off the building in Dubai. I showed parks barefoot behind the F1. And, I showed like there's still this big contingent of water skiers 30 years later that don't like wakeboarding. You know,
I'm gonna bite my tongue.
Yeah, I don't have to explain. But the reason why I showed it was because I said, look, he's on a wake skate. You realize how small that segment is. And he's getting worldwide attention. It's Red Bull's highest viewed video of all time. You know, and so I was like, you guys can do it too. Like, what are we going to do? Slalom in the canyons in Lake Powell? Like barefoot through this or that? What's next? Like, this is where we're going. This is where I'm going. And we can respect the tradition and all the 3 event skiing, but
you got to embrace reality.
If you guys, because you can, you can't change the wind, but you can adjust your sails. And there haven't been a lot of sails adjusted. Slalom, is bottlenecked. It's physically impossible to run a shorter rope. And the rope's already shorter than the buoy.
Yeah,
so
unless you're 8 feet tall.
How much farther? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How much farther are you going to jump on a tradition? So we're going to break some norms. And we already did. Did you see the triple jump?
I
video?
think I saw it on Instagram. I'll put that in.
So that's for freestyle. Freestyle jumping is near and dear to my heart. It was on the tour at the same time wakeboarding. It was the ski and wake series back in the Budweiser days.
You need to bring the Budweiser days back.
So yeah, it was hot. It was awesome. So Zane would do both. He'd freestyle, jump, and then wakeboard. And they were both super cool. Just freestyle is not accessible to people, and it's pretty gnarly. But
Well, you need to jump, right?
Yeah,
so-
6-foot jump.
Yeah.
And there's this whole resurgence, and new kids and girls are learning at the clinics, and freestyle's taken off again. So I had an idea to put 3 jumps, one in a left, right, left configuration, and then 1 3 in a row, boom, 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 3-man team, triple heli, triple flip, triple gainer. And
Triple heli. There you go. That's a helicopter 360.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so we did drone, and Rob Hazelwood did editing. He's really good on the ski side.
Yeah.
And then Jake Snyder did drone. I made a professional, let's say Defy inspired, creative freestyle jumping piece. And we premiered it last night, actually. It was a rager. I threw a rager.
There you go.
And the whole town of Winter Haven showed up, and they never had anything like this. So it's super cool. I'm just taking the blueprint from what we used to do in the wakeboard heyday and applying it to water skiing. And they're so stoked. We're making superstars out of these dudes.
Yeah.
And it's been... Yeah, that part's the most fun of this job. But there's a lot of admin. We have 9 sport disciplines. Yeah. So there's 3 event, there's show ski, there's kneeboard, there's barefoot, there's adaptive, ski racing, all these
Ski
little
racing.
niches. Yeah,
What's ski racing?
big deal. I think Amber said her folks are into it, and maybe
Yes,
Scotty Kell and then we're into it too.
Amber definitely did, yeah.
Dude, they're going, I don't know, 90, 100 miles an hour, and you wrap this harness behind, and you just race to, I think it's for distance and time. It's this whole culture that I don't know about, but I'm going to go check it out.
Sick.
Yeah, but we have 14,000 members, and it's been in slight decline every year, and we're sick of it.
Yeah.
So, not messing around, dude. We're going to turn it on its head from a media assault standpoint, and we're going to be out of the box and edgy and give water skiing everything it's needed to just grow. And that includes junior development and collegiate. The Collegiate Nationals, they set it up like a music festival.
I wanted to touch on this. So
It's awesome. So the kids that age, they'll be frugal with their money when it comes to buying a new car, buying a new house. When it comes to experiences, music festivals, dude, they're shelling. So my daughter's in that industry now, and it's lucrative, but it sucks them in from a lifestyle standpoint. So they don't care how they ski. It's just they got team fits and themes, and it's just this whole school spirit thing. And water skiing's gonna thrive in that area, and it's on the rise, and they're doing really well. The collegiate and junior development, big focus on what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that it seems like collegiate water skiing from the outside looking in seems very alive, very much so doing well. Collegiate wakeboarding, not so much as strong. And I think that's a huge, because I think you get into these sports at 2 points in your life, either as a young child when your parents get you into it, or, whoever, or in college. In America, I'm talking, obviously, in your university where you join the team, and then now it becomes your part of who you identify as in college and your kind of group that you hang out with.
Yeah.
Outside of those two things, there's not many people, I don't think, getting into water sports,
Sure.
When they turn 30, they're going to go, maybe they buy a boat and go wake surfing, but it's not the same, I guess. So, what do you think will help propel water sports back into, it's not going to be like it was, and I think everybody knows that, but what will help propel it upwards, I guess? All of the water sports, wakeboarding, water skiing, 3-event, all jump, all that stuff.
Yeah, rich content, media, promoting the lifestyle. Because you can argue all day about the sport and if you like doing it or not. But one thing I noticed when we were with Transworld and all these action sports groups is how rad this lifestyle is. So you're on boat, in the sun, around the water, listening to music, hanging out with friends, family. I experienced that with my daughter. She's 21 now, and we've always shared that, and it's been, they market the sport as that, but to really experience that with your own kid is pretty cool feeling.
Yeah.
So I do agree that our environment's the best thing we got going for us. So I'm going to hit it hard, Hunter. We're going to hit the lifestyle element of it very hard. Because what else? I mean, name a sport. I mean, you were in snowboarding. Like, it's pretty cool. It's cold.
Parking lot beers don't hit the same as boat beers. I'll tell you that much for right now. I mean, They still hit, but
yeah.
So
yeah,
it's you're right. I mean, it's one of the best places to hang out, and it doesn't even matter anything water related, whether it's at the cable park or at the boat or water ski boat, wakeboard boat, wake surf. Doesn't they're all the same vibe.
Yeah, and I noticed there's a lot of crowdfunding and private funding in water skiing still. That's what has kept a lot of the events around. And I didn't experience that in this wakeboarding heyday. It was all industry money and actual money. Then there was commerce and sales and everything related. That's the sign of a healthy sport. But when you start getting, this rich, lawyer dad is gonna shell out for this event and this thing. Then they have private voices. When I want it to be Ronix Radar, all the Masscraft, Nautique, Malibu, whoever. When they have the industry voices because of what's best for sale, I think that's a more healthy approach. So we're trying to my goal is to give them 1 year of at least 1% growth. And it's a big goal based on the trajectory it's been on, but I think we can get there, dude. And I don't know, the support I've had in my career has just been that, I don't know, people like to do anything behind the boat. If that can be contagious, I think that's why I'm here.
And it is contagious. The thing is that we're talking about it right now. It's naturally contagious. What we have at the core, the bones of it, is fucking awesome. It's so sick. So let's just keep leaning into that, I guess. And again, we're not solving the world's problems here on the
No, but
podcast,
but this is an important point. You got to think of these sports in terms of their inertia. And this is why I got into branding instead of sales, because I just heard Gary Vee talking about this. Sales, you can be a great salesman and sell and sell and sell, whether it's advertisement or sell sponsors or whatever. But Gary Vee kind of said that great salesmen chose that path because they're bad at branding. And this hit me because during my interview process, I had this whole thing about how if you're doing the right things, you attract membership. And I know what that feels like, because you know how you guys sit around and like Dryling was on here and you guys were talking about how do we grow the sport? And Dryling's like, yeah, man, we've been in so many rooms where it's like, how do we grow the sport? And at WSI, I was in those rooms, and at some point it just turns into, well, pass the handle, get on the water. Our program at USA is called Get on the Water. WSI started Pass the Handle. But during this run with Wakeboarding Magazine, there was no meetings being called to order.
Yeah.
With people sitting around going, how can we grow this sport? Like we thought of it and we were conscious of it, but it was moving on its own, dude. And once a project or a sport gets legs, we call it, you can't stop it. No, even if you tried, you can't stop it. So I think the goal is to create and facilitate that. And that's through branding and promotion and
100%.
showing off that lifestyle. And that's kind of why I touch on the Blue Mind stuff, because it gives you kind of a neuroscience-y,
something real too.
Something real.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we were happy that summer we spent on the lake. Yeah. And I the Lake Lovers Club was something I got started into with Dano, and that just branded that lifestyle as well. So I'm just taking the approach of branding to attract membership and attract participation.
Well, and that's the best way to do it. Longevity
hard sales
too, right? Like sales is easy if the product you're selling is great.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you can have a great salesman, but his product's shit. He's not going to really sell that great. Otherwise, it's be deceptive. So yeah, that's cool. That's good. It seems like you got a lot of energy towards this, which is very good to see.
Dude, I live for this shit, man.
Yeah.
Like it's been all I could think about the last 5 months. And the fact that it includes wake sports too, we got a lot. I mean, WWA has a lock on all things wake, and I'm respecting that. So we're not going head to head, but if we can collaborate or I can support it. I mean, we got some events coming up in wakeboarding that pretty excited about this year. The Masters is next weekend, and I'm gonna be handing out checks where we got a multiplier on so if a Team USA athlete, so it's like Gunther or Thomas or Megan or any of those, first place, I think there's a $2,500 bonus, and then it's $2,000, $1,500, and all the way through fourth place. Yeah. At Nona, we're having a cable for wakeboard and wake skate. It's the Pan Am Championships. That's July 19th through the 21st. And then there's a boat at our site, the complex in Auburndale, Florida, Lake Myrtle Sports Complex, October 17th through 19th, and straight boat competition, private lake. So it'll be a throwdown. That's an IWWF Pan Am Wakeboard Championships for boat. So I got a chance to kind of market
I didn't know that was stateside this year.
You're talking the games. The Pan Am Games are every 2 or 4 years.
I think it's 2.
Yeah, those are the games. So they have the championships every year, and that keeps rankings and stuff like that going.
Thing I have, the problem with all these things is it's confusing to me.
Totally. And I'm still getting up to speed too.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'd like to see it all maybe be simplified.
Sure. People don't even know what Pan Am means. That means North and South America. That's what Pan American means.
It used to be an airline, by the way. But
yeah.
So I guess, is there any other events that you guys are doing this year? Sounds like
those are the majors.
Main ones.
Yeah. But I look forward to kind of creating a Team USA identity, because it's cool, and they send us merch and it's marketable. And anytime we have a chance to be a part of something bigger, I think we should take a hold of that. And maybe someday we could get, for example, like a Lindsey Vaughn, she wake surfs. It's like, okay, let's do some crossover with some big sports. And I'm seeing the opportunity there.
Yeah. So
then we got a ton of support just by being a national governing body, even though we're not actually in the Olympic Games. We got a lot of support. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely something cool to be a part of that I'm still learning about, but it's interesting, and I think there could be a future for Team USA in wakeboarding.
There we go. That's what we like to hear. Team USA, baby. Let's get those bibs on. Red, white, and blue. One last one before we kind of wrap it up here. But what gets you stoked on wakeboarding right now?
Right now,
Could be water sports in general, but
what gets me stoked on wakeboarding right now? Thomas Herman, Mossy, Zarkel's back fives.
they do look good.
Let's see. Megan, Gunther, Ruck, and the job he's been doing in the media. What else? Remind me of some cable things that are hitting hard.
There's one that I can't speak about yet.
Yeah.
It's happening later this summer.
Yeah.
It'll probably be announced by the time I talk. I won't do it, but.
Yeah. Mentioned Mossy.
I mean, those are you hit a lot of good names there.
Yeah, I think I truly believe wakeboarding will always be a staple, in your water sports quiver. It's always something to have on the boat. And I know cable's kind of going through a tough spot.
It's weird in America.
Business-wise,
right now.
it's weird. But hopefully we can figure that out on the business end, because I do see it as a viable business option, but I do know that it takes more than just selling wristbands to ride the cable. You gotta
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. So hopefully we'll see a resurgence come back with all that.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. So I guess we got one last.
Oh, and all the La Familia boys, dude. Like, I got to commentate for them last year, and like, they got the juice, bro. Those guys, yeah,
they're bringing
the
some
Ditch
vibes.
brothers and Luca and Sam, and goes without saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw a video of you getting a drink just splashed in your face at Wakefest last year.
Oh yeah,
So
and the whole equipment for the band that was about to play,
Maybe
they weren't as stoked as we were.
I don't blame them, but okay, it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
One last Patreon question here from Garrett Cortez.
Oh wow.
It's kind of looking back on what we already touched on, but do you remember an overly stoked college kid sending you, Wakeboarding Mag, an email in 2002 looking for an internship? Then that college kid found a response in the new mail section of a later issue of the mag. Then that kid found a new mag called Alliance. Then Alliance published some of that kid's photos, then hired him, and he became an editor.
I don't know if I think we just heard the whole story.
I don't think there's any question there. That's more of a statement.
I didn't remember this, but I felt like a jerk. There was a deal before my time. Tom James was really good at blasting the people that wrote in letters. He would just slam them in the magazine, and that's a sign of like you're doing really good, that you can like slam your own customers basically. But it was all in good fun, and it was hilarious, and it made people read the letter section though.
Yeah,
I would tell you that, and you know this from your days. Is like, come on. Oh, I was gonna tell you, Thomas Horrell was basically an internet troll, but in real life.
I think Thomas Horrell and I would get along pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. He was doing that in real life. So he was a wakeboarding troll in person. Like, that's how much of a G that guy was. But so I guess, I don't know, I tried to kind of keep that blast in the readership thing going on maybe a little longer than I needed to. And Garrett's was one of those, and I hadn't heard of him, but he wrote a letter in. I don't remember.
I'd love to pull that up somehow.
I think he did. I think he was in the office one time. It was cool to see people come in, like Silas Thurman. He should have him on the show. He'd be great. They would come in and be like, "Oh, I wrote a letter." So many people in the scene wrote a letter to the mag, and it got published. And so many people would say that the inbox, or whatever, the letter section was their favorite part. And it's
always the best.
They wouldn't read the letter; they'd go right to the responses. So that was like a pressure, So I felt like I had to carry on. And Tom James was a little more eloquent with his roasting, so maybe I ripped on Garrett pretty hard
in a simple way.
And then he ended up getting hired at Alliance, and then I tried to hire him at Wakeboarding Magazine. He's like, "No, I'm going to stick it out." And then I moved on, and then Wakeboarding hired him. He ended up there. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool how it all just kind of.
That is cool how that all worked out.
Garrett's, my saying for him is, guys like Garrett Cortez don't grow on trees. He's a great writer, great photographer. Knows his stuff, came from the Delta, knows good style. He's had a very respectable career.
He's got a good eye too. Good eye for stuff too, which is
he's fun to smash a Coors Latte with.
He's just a nice guy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, before we wrap this up, anybody you want to thank here? Anything you want to touch on?
Oh man, my mom Nancy, like she was the lady at the ski show selling merch, but coming to watch me ski. And my dad pulled me with his hands in a ski rope, when I was like 5 years old, and he was wearing the '80s glasses and the track shorts and the dorky flare. I can still remember every detail, and like how significant is that?
Yeah.
So my sister Carrie, daughter Mia, that's my crew. But yeah, any riders we didn't touch on, like, who you are. If we've like had some good years together, like LaRich, Adam Arrington.
There's hundreds of them.
Yeah, hundreds, too many to count, but like, yeah, Rusty, Amber, so many. You all know who you are. And all those times, dude, were real. They were genuine. I truly enjoyed being where I was on every occasion and didn't want it to end. And, it's just different nowadays. I don't think we couldn't bottle that up. Like I was telling you, the zeitgeist, we can't like recreate it. There's no going back to the days before cell phones, but
yeah,
the whole Pointless crew. Mention all the guys from WBM, Larry Meddock, John Archer. John was my president at WSIA, and he owned, Kent Watersports, which was H.O. Connolly, Liquid Force, O'Brien, Barefoot International, Fat Sack, all that stuff. Biggest gangster I've ever worked for. Most intelligent man I've ever worked with, John Archer. Shout out. And then, just, thanks to Bob Archambault and the crew at USA Waterski and Wake Sports. I've been blessed. People ask me like, oh, how do you start a career and whatever? And you might be at that point where it's like, it's happening, but it's not happening. And dude, like, I don't have the answers, man, but there's something about just being someone who knows how to make it gel and to be able to take certain elements and different dynamics and make them gel. And if you have that ability to kind of be in a room, I don't think I was the best editor. I don't think I was the best photographer. Wasn't a remarkable wakeboarder. I don't know that I had one real like
Tangent Blind though.
Yeah, mid. Yeah, I'm a mid wakeboarder. Yeah.
Blind.
And but I think I did have some emotional intelligence. So when we were going into Wake Awards, I knew exactly how everyone in the room was gonna, react to anything, and that takes time. Like, I truly cared about the people, so I would know how everyone would react to every decision we ever made, and I could tell you like instantly. And once you have that, you're the most valuable person, in there. So people ask me for advice. I don't have specifics, man. Like I'm lucky to be here. Like I've worked out of the industry a couple times and like hated it. So I'm just so stoked to be back, and like quite a freaking honor to be sitting in this chair with all the gangsters that you've had on this show, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks for coming on. This has been an absolute blast. I've loved having this chat with you. I was looking forward to it a lot. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate everybody listening to this one. If you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple, make sure you rate 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below, or like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal there. And if you're interested in supporting the podcast, join the Patreon. Really love everybody on the Patreon to make this possible. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for coming on. See you guys next time.